Hello, my friends. Before we settle into tonight's story, take a moment to tell me where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. If you enjoy these slow journeys into the past, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more quiet historical stories. And if you have memories of parents, grandparents, or relatives who lived through the decades we explore, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. Now, dim the lights a little if you can, because tonight, we're stepping into a world that might look comfortable from the outside, but was often far more demanding than many people realize. Imagine waking before sunrise every day, working without weekends, without vacations, without sick leave, and without anyone calling it a job. And here's the unsettling part. Millions of women did exactly that. The daily routine of a 1960s American housewife could easily exhaust many people today, not because of one dramatic task, but because of hundreds of small responsibilities stacked one on top of another, every single day. So, let us travel back. The year is 1962. You live somewhere in suburban America, perhaps outside Chicago, maybe near Cleveland. It could be a growing neighborhood in California or a quiet street in Ohio. The exact location changes, but the routine remains remarkably similar. The alarm clock rings early. Not a smartphone alarm with gentle music. A mechanical clock sits on a bedside table, its sharp sound cutting through the darkness. The house is still cool. Many homes had central heating by this period, but temperatures often dropped overnight. Before anything else, there is breakfast to prepare. Coffee goes on first. For millions of American households, coffee was not optional. The smell-filled kitchens across the country every morning. Eggs, toast, cereal, bacon, oatmeal, or pancakes might follow depending on the family's budget and schedule. A husband preparing for work expects breakfast. Children preparing for school expect breakfast. And unlike modern kitchens filled with time-saving appliances, many tasks still required significant manual effort. Dishwashers existed, but were not universal. Microwaves had not yet become common household items. Many conveniences that people take for granted today simply were not available. As breakfast is served, another responsibility begins. Lunches. Paper bags are opened. Sandwiches are prepared. Fruit is packed. Cookies might be added as a treat. Everything must be ready before school buses arrive or before children begin walking to school. By 7 in the morning, many housewives have already completed more physical work than some modern office workers perform before lunchtime. Yet the day is only beginning. Once family members leave, the house becomes quiet. For a moment, then the real work starts. American culture in the early 1960s often celebrated the image of the cheerful suburban homemaker. Television advertisements showed smiling women effortlessly cleaning sparkling kitchens while wearing perfect dresses and neatly styled hair. Reality was often different. Laundry alone could consume hours. Automatic washing machines had become widespread, but laundry was far from a simple process. Clothes had to be sorted carefully. Different fabrics required different treatment. Stains demanded attention. Loads needed transferring, drying, folding, ironing, and storing. Ironing deserves special mention. Today, many fabrics resist wrinkles. In the 1960s, ironing was a routine expectation. Dress shirts, children's clothing, tablecloths, bed linens. The iron might remain hot for long stretches of the day. As one chore finishes, another appears. Dusting furniture, sweeping floors, vacuuming carpets, cleaning bathrooms, polishing surfaces, washing windows. Maintaining a respectable home carried enormous social pressure. Neighbors noticed, visitors noticed, relatives noticed. Women's magazines regularly featured articles encouraging immaculate housekeeping standards. Many readers quietly struggled to achieve them. By mid-morning, grocery shopping enters the schedule. The American supermarket was expanding rapidly during this period. Bright aisles offered products that seemed modern and exciting compared with previous generations. But shopping was not always convenient. Many families owned one car. The husband often drove it to work. This meant some women walked, relied on friends, used public transportation, or carefully planned around available transportation. And grocery shopping was rarely a quick trip. Budgets required attention. Prices mattered. Coupons mattered. Feeding an entire family efficiently was considered an important skill. Every purchase represented another calculation. Stretching money while providing nutritious meals became a daily challenge for countless households. Returning home, groceries must be unpacked. Refrigerators in the 1960s were becoming larger, but storage still required careful organization. Fresh food spoiled quickly. Meal planning demanded foresight. Dinner was not something ordered from an app. It was something prepared from scratch, often every day. As noon approaches, there may finally be a brief opportunity to sit down. But even moments of rest frequently included work. Letters might need writing. Bills might need organizing. Sewing repairs might need attention. Buttons fell off shirts. Hems loosened. Children's clothing wore out. Many women learned practical sewing skills because replacing garments regularly was expensive. This was an era when repairing items remained common. The throwaway culture familiar today had not fully arrived. A torn shirt was often fixed. A damaged curtain was often mended. A worn household item might receive another chance before replacement. Throughout all of this, another reality often remained hidden. Many housewives reported feelings of isolation. Suburban neighborhoods looked lively in photographs, yet daily life could be surprisingly lonely. Hours passed without meaningful adult conversation. Television sometimes provided company. Radio voices filled quiet rooms. But much of the day unfolded alone. Outside, America was changing rapidly. The space race captured national attention. The Cold War influenced everyday thinking. Civil rights movements were reshaping the nation. Yet many women spent their afternoons balancing grocery lists, laundry baskets, and household expectations. And as the afternoon sun slowly shifts across the kitchen floor, another demanding phase of the day begins to approach. School will soon end. Children will return home. Dinner preparations must begin. And for many families in 1962, the busiest hours are still ahead. School buses began appearing on neighborhood streets. The quiet hours of the day fade away as children return home carrying books, lunch boxes, permission slips, homework assignments, and stories from the classroom. The atmosphere inside the house changes immediately. What had been a carefully controlled environment during the morning suddenly becomes active and unpredictable. For many American housewives in the early 1960s, this period required a completely different set of skills. A child might come home excited about a school project. Another might arrive upset after an argument with a classmate. A younger child could be hungry, tired, and impatient all at once. The mother was often expected to manage every situation smoothly. Snack time frequently came first. This was not usually the packaged convenience food familiar today. Many snacks were prepared at home. A glass of milk, sliced fruit, crackers, peanut butter sandwiches, or homemade cookies were common choices. Mothers were encouraged by schools, doctors, magazines, and advertisers to ensure children received proper nutrition. At the same time, homework supervision often began. American education was changing throughout the 1950s and 1960s. Following the launch of the Soviet satellite Sputnik in 1957, there was growing concern about science and mathematics education in the United States. Parents heard frequent discussions about academic achievement and national competitiveness. Even if a mother had not attended college herself, she was often expected to assist with school assignments. This expectation created pressure. Some women had left school years earlier. Others had abandoned educational ambitions after marriage. Yet every afternoon they found themselves helping children navigate arithmetic problems, spelling lessons, reading exercises, and science projects. Meanwhile, household work continued. The laundry basket never truly became empty. Fresh dishes appeared in the sink. Floors collected dirt. Beds required straightening. Bathrooms required cleaning. The list seemed endless because in many ways it was. Unlike employment with a clearly defined end of the workday, housekeeping operated without a stopping point. There was always one more task, one more room, one more responsibility. As afternoon moved toward evening, dinner preparation became increasingly important. In many households, dinner represented the central meal of the day. Family schedules revolved around it. Expectations surrounding it were substantial. A woman might begin preparing ingredients hours before the meal was served. Vegetables needed washing. Potatoes needed peeling. Meat required preparation. Ovens required preheating. Recipes often involved numerous steps completed entirely by hand. Cookbooks from the era reveal just how much labor went into ordinary meals. Even relatively simple dinners demanded planning, timing, and physical effort. Roast beef, meatloaf, baked chicken, casseroles, mashed potatoes, fresh vegetables, homemade gravy, dinner rolls, and desserts regularly appeared on American tables. Many of these foods were prepared without the shortcuts available today. The kitchen could become warm, especially during summer months. Air conditioning was becoming more common but remained far from universal. In some regions of the country, women spent hours cooking in temperatures that modern households would find uncomfortable. The image often presented in advertisements showed cheerful smiles and spotless kitchens. The reality frequently involved perspiration, fatigue, and careful multitasking. By the time husbands returned from work, many wives had already completed 10 or 11 hours of continuous labor. Yet this effort was rarely described using the language of work. It was simply considered part of being a wife. Popular magazines often promoted the ideal of the supportive homemaker whose own needs came after those of her family. Some women genuinely embraced this role. Others quietly struggled with it. Both experiences existed simultaneously. The historical record shows that life was rarely as simple as advertisements suggested. As dinner began, family members gathered around the table. This daily ritual held significant cultural importance in 1960s America. Television ownership had become widespread, but many families still viewed dinner as a time for conversation. Parents discussed work. Children discussed school. News events entered the conversation. National headlines might include developments in the Cold War, the Civil Rights Movement, or the latest achievements of the American space program. For a brief period, the family occupied the same space together. Yet even during dinner, the housewife's responsibilities rarely stopped. She served food, refilled drinks, cleared plates, managed conversation, monitored children's behavior, observed whether everyone had enough to eat. Then came cleanup. The meal itself might last 30 minutes. Cleaning afterward could require considerably longer. Before automatic dishwashers became common, washing dishes remained a significant chore. Plates, glasses, utensils, pots, pans, serving dishes, and cooking equipment all demanded attention. Hot water filled sinks. Dish towels hung nearby. The process repeated every evening. Some families shared responsibilities. Many did not. Surveys from the period consistently show that women performed the overwhelming majority of household labor. The expectation was deeply embedded within American culture. After dishes came preparation for the next day. School clothes were arranged. Lunch ingredients were checked. Appointments were reviewed. Household schedules were organized. Mothers often served as the administrative center of the family long before anyone used that phrase. Doctors' visits, school events, birthdays, community activities, religious services, all required planning and coordination. And then there were social expectations. Many suburban communities maintained active social calendars, church groups, parent organizations, neighborhood gatherings, charity events, school fundraisers, women's clubs. Participation often carried both social benefits and social obligations. Maintaining community connections required time and energy that many women could scarcely spare. As darkness settled outside, television increasingly became part of family life. The early 1960s are often remembered through famous television programs that entered millions of homes each evening. Families gathered around large wooden television cabinets. Programs provided entertainment, information, and a shared cultural experience. Yet even while others relaxed, many women continued working. Clothing might be mended while watching television. Laundry might be folded. Children's school items might be prepared. Household accounts might be balanced. The work simply shifted forms. One of the most revealing aspects of this lifestyle appears in surveys conducted during the era. Many housewives reported feeling physically tired at the end of the day. This should not surprise us. A typical routine involved hours of standing, lifting, carrying, bending, cleaning, cooking, organizing, supervising, and planning. Modern fitness experts might classify portions of the day as moderate physical exercise. The difference was that it happened every day, whether someone felt energetic or not. And unlike many occupations, there were no guaranteed breaks, no lunch hour, no vacation package, no retirement plan. The demands of family life continued regardless of personal exhaustion. Late in the evening, children eventually went to bed. The house grew quieter once more. But even then, many women found themselves reviewing tomorrow's responsibilities. What groceries were needed? What appointments were scheduled? What school activities required preparation? What household task had been postponed? These questions often lingered in the mind long after the day's visible work had ended. Outside, suburban streets became silent beneath streetlights. Inside thousands of homes across America, women finally sat down after a day that had begun before sunrise. Yet as they looked toward tomorrow, they already knew something important. In only a few short hours, the alarm clock would ring again, and the entire cycle would begin from the very start. The alarm clock rings once again. It is remarkable how quickly one day blended into the next for many American housewives during the early 1960s. Looking back from the modern world, individual years often appear distinct and memorable. Yet for people living through them, daily life was usually experienced through routines rather than historic moments. For countless women, mornings began before the rest of the family stirred. The house sat quietly in the darkness. Coffee was started. Breakfast ingredients were gathered, and another day of responsibilities moved steadily forward. What makes this routine difficult for many modern observers to fully appreciate is its consistency. There were no weekends from housekeeping. Saturday and Sunday might bring different activities, but they rarely reduced the workload. In some cases, they increased it. Children remained home from school. More meals were required. Additional cleaning followed increased household activity. Family outings demanded preparation. Guests occasionally visited. The work simply changed shape. Throughout the United States, suburban communities continued expanding rapidly during this period. New housing developments appeared outside major cities. Rows of similar homes stretched across land that only a few years earlier had been farmland or open countryside. For many families, these neighborhoods represented success. Home ownership symbolized stability. A private yard suggested prosperity. Modern appliances reflected progress. Yet beneath these symbols of comfort existed practical realities that consumed enormous amounts of time. Take grocery shopping as an example. Today, many people enter a store with a smartphone, purchase items quickly, and leave. In the early 1960s, shopping often involved more preparation. Weekly advertisements were studied carefully. Coupons were clipped from newspapers. Budgets were calculated. Menus were planned around available ingredients and family finances. Food represented one of the largest household expenses. Every dollar mattered. The average American family expected the housewife to manage these resources efficiently. A successful homemaker was frequently judged by her ability to provide quality meals without overspending. This expectation created pressure that was often invisible. A dinner appearing effortlessly on the table represented hours of planning behind the scenes. And food preparation itself remained labor-intensive. Fresh vegetables required cleaning and preparation. Meats required trimming and cooking. Recipes often involved multiple stages. Even baking a simple dessert demanded measuring, mixing, timing, and cleanup. Cookbooks of the era reveal a fascinating mixture of tradition and modernization. Older recipes handed down through generations existed alongside new processed foods heavily promoted by advertisers. Manufacturers introduced products promising convenience. Instant puddings, cake mixes, frozen dinners, prepared ingredients. These innovations generated excitement because they appeared to save time. Yet many women discovered that convenience rarely eliminated work entirely. Instead, it slightly reduced one task while numerous others remained. The idealized image of the cheerful homemaker became increasingly visible during this decade. Television commercials portrayed spotless kitchens. Magazine covers displayed smiling mothers. Advertisements suggested that modern appliances transformed housekeeping into a pleasant experience. The reality was far more complicated. Researchers studying women's experiences during this era repeatedly found a gap between public images and private feelings. Many women appreciated their families and took pride in maintaining homes. At the same time, some experienced boredom, frustration, loneliness, or exhaustion. These emotions were not always discussed openly. Social expectations encouraged gratitude and positivity. Complaining about domestic responsibilities could be interpreted as selfishness or failure. As a result, many women carried their concerns quietly. A typical afternoon might involve activities rarely celebrated in advertisements: scrubbing a bathtub, cleaning behind furniture, removing stains from clothing, repairing children's toys, organizing closets, sorting seasonal items. None of these tasks appeared glamorous, yet they consumed hours. And unlike office work, progress often disappeared quickly. A freshly cleaned room became messy again. Laundry accumulated again. Dishes returned. The same chores repeated endlessly. This cycle created a unique psychological challenge. There was rarely a sense of permanent completion, only temporary order. Some women found satisfaction in maintaining that order. Others felt trapped by its constant demands. Across the country, mothers also carried primary responsibility for children's health and daily welfare. If a child became ill, the mother generally remained home providing care. Minor injuries, colds, flu symptoms, school absences, all became part of her responsibilities. Medical advice itself reflected the period. Parents were encouraged to monitor nutrition, rest, hygiene, and behavior carefully. Many mothers became informal nurses as well as cooks, cleaners, teachers, and organizers. At the same time, society expected them to maintain a pleasant appearance. This expectation may surprise some modern observers. Magazines frequently advised women to remain attractive for their husbands. Beauty routines consumed additional time. Hairstyling was often a major undertaking. Many women visited beauty salons regularly. Others maintained elaborate hairstyles at home. Photographs from the era reveal carefully arranged hair that did not appear effortlessly. Creating those styles required rollers, setting lotions, dryers, brushes, and patience. Clothing expectations also differed significantly from modern casual standards. Women often wore dresses during ordinary household activities. Skirts, blouses, and coordinated outfits remained common. Even when performing physically demanding chores, many attempted to maintain a polished appearance. The social pressure behind these expectations was substantial. Neighbors observed one another. Community reputation mattered. Appearances carried meaning. A tidy home reflected positively on the family. A well-dressed wife reflected positively on the husband. Such attitudes were deeply woven into cultural expectations. As afternoon sunlight moved through living room windows, another important element of suburban life appeared: the neighborhood itself. Children played outside. Mothers spoke over fences. Friends visited one another for coffee. Informal social networks developed throughout many communities. These relationships provided companionship and support. They also created comparison. One family's spotless home became another woman's source of insecurity. One child's achievements became another parent's concern. Human nature has always included comparison, and suburban neighborhoods offered plenty of opportunities for it. The pressure to appear successful often remained powerful. Beneath the surface, however, America itself was entering a period of significant change. The civil rights movement was gaining momentum. National debates grew more intense. Political tensions shaped daily news coverage. The world seemed increasingly complex. Many housewives followed these developments through newspapers, radio broadcasts, and evening television programs. Yet despite the historic events unfolding across the nation, tomorrow's laundry still needed washing. Tomorrow's meals still needed preparing. Tomorrow's children still needed caring for. History moved forward on a national scale while ordinary responsibilities continued inside individual homes. And as evening slowly approached once again, countless women found themselves returning to familiar routines. Dinner preparations resumed. Homework required attention. Household tasks remained unfinished. The day felt busy. The week felt busy. The year felt busy. And somewhere beneath all those routines, a question quietly lingered in the minds of many women. If life was becoming more modern every year, why did so many still feel so tired? If life was becoming more modern every year, why did so many still feel so tired? That question quietly followed many women through the early 1960s, even if they rarely spoke it aloud. The promise of modern America was visible everywhere. New appliances appeared in department stores. Television commercials celebrated convenience. Automobiles became more reliable. Suburban neighborhoods expanded. Consumer products filled store shelves. From a distance, it seemed logical that daily life should be getting easier. Yet the experience inside many households suggested something different. One reason was simple. As technology improved, expectations often increased alongside it. When washing clothes became faster, families owned more clothes. When vacuum cleaners improved, standards of cleanliness rose. When larger refrigerators appeared, grocery shopping became more ambitious. Convenience did not always eliminate work. Sometimes it merely changed its form. A woman living in 1930 may have been praised for keeping a reasonably clean house. A woman living in 1963 often faced expectations for near perfection. Magazine articles frequently presented detailed advice on maintaining spotless kitchens, organized closets, attractive living rooms, healthy meals, well-behaved children, and happy marriages simultaneously. Achieving all those goals at once required tremendous effort. As morning turned into afternoon, many housewives found themselves moving constantly from one task to another. The rhythm could feel almost mechanical. Make beds, collect laundry, dust furniture, answer the telephone, prepare lunch, wash dishes, plan dinner, run errands, assist children, repeat. And while these tasks may sound ordinary when listed individually, their combined weight could become exhausting. Researchers who later studied domestic labor found something important. Household work was not merely physical, it was mental. A mother had to remember appointments, track household supplies, monitor family schedules, anticipate future needs, solve unexpected problems, manage finances, handle emergencies. The thinking never truly stopped. Today, some historians describe this as carrying the mental load of family life. Although the term itself was not commonly used in the 1960s, the responsibility certainly existed. Imagine trying to remember every school event, every grocery item, every family birthday, every medical appointment, every bill, every meal plan, and every household need without digital reminders. Many women did exactly that. Their minds became living calendars. Their notebooks became family management systems. Their memories became essential household tools. During these years, telephone calls often interrupted the day. The family telephone usually occupied a central location within the home. Unlike modern smartphones carried everywhere, the telephone remained attached to the wall or rested on a table. When it rang, someone had to answer. Calls could come from schools, doctors, relatives, neighbors, church groups, local organizations, friends arranging visits. The telephone connected communities, but it also created additional obligations. A single call could add another responsibility to an already crowded day. Across suburban America, community expectations remained powerful. Church attendance was common. School involvement was encouraged. Volunteer activities were respected. Fundraisers required participation. Neighborhood gatherings created social obligations. These activities often provided meaningful connections, yet they also consumed time and energy. Women frequently found themselves balancing family duties with community responsibilities. A church event might require preparing food. A school fundraiser might require organizing materials. A neighborhood gathering might require hosting guests. Even social activities often involved work. One of the most fascinating aspects of this era is how invisible much of that labor became. A well-maintained household often appeared effortless to outsiders. Guests entered a clean living room. Children appeared fed and dressed. Dinner appeared on schedule. Everything seemed orderly. What guests did not see were the hours behind that appearance. The shopping, the cleaning, the planning, the worrying, the constant attention required to keep daily life functioning smoothly. In many ways, successful housekeeping hid its own effort. The better the work was done, the less visible it became. As afternoons stretched onward, household finances frequently demanded attention. Many families operated on a single primary income. That meant budgets mattered greatly. The housewife often managed grocery expenses, clothing purchases, utility payments, and household necessities with remarkable precision. A few dollars saved here could help cover an unexpected expense later. Inflation existed. Unexpected repairs occurred. Medical bills appeared. Children outgrew clothing. Financial management required careful judgment. Contrary to certain stereotypes, many women developed sophisticated budgeting skills through necessity. They knew prices. They tracked expenses. They compared options. They made difficult decisions when resources were limited. Some even maintained handwritten records documenting household spending over months or years. As the decade progressed, another quiet change began taking shape. A growing number of women started questioning whether traditional domestic roles fully reflected their ambitions. Not every woman felt this way. Many remained satisfied with homemaking and family life, but others began wondering whether additional opportunities might exist beyond the household. Some remembered educational goals left unfinished. Others imagined careers they had never pursued. Still others simply sought greater independence. These feelings would become increasingly significant as the decade continued. For now, however, most housewives remained focused on immediate responsibilities. The next meal, the next school event, the next household task. History often appears dramatic when viewed from a distance, but for the people living through it, change usually arrives slowly. A conversation here, an article there, a new idea encountered during a quiet afternoon. Small moments accumulate long before major transformations become visible. Meanwhile, ordinary routines continued. The smell of dinner drifted through kitchens. Children returned from playing outdoors. Television sets flickered to life in living rooms. Newspapers arrived on front porches. Cars returned to driveways as workers came home from offices, factories, stores, and construction sites. The familiar evening cycle began once more. Dinner conversations reflected the concerns of the era. International tensions, local news, school activities, family finances, the future. Parents worried about opportunities for their children. Children dreamed about adulthood. The world beyond the neighborhood seemed both exciting and uncertain. After dinner, dishes once again filled sinks. Counters required wiping. Tables required clearing. The workday continued. And perhaps that was one of the greatest hidden truths of the 1960s housewife's routine. The work rarely ended at a specific hour. There was no moment when a supervisor announced that responsibilities were complete. Instead, the day slowly faded into night while tasks gradually became fewer. Eventually, the house grew quiet. Children slept. Neighborhood lights dimmed. The television switched off. Yet before finally resting, many women performed one last habit. They looked ahead. Tomorrow's breakfast. Tomorrow's errands. Tomorrow's appointments. Tomorrow's responsibilities. Because experience had taught them something important. Morning would arrive sooner than expected, and with it would come another long day waiting patiently just beyond sunrise. Morning would arrive sooner than expected, and for millions of American women during the 1960s, that reality shaped nearly every aspect of life. Long before the phrase work-life balance entered public conversation, housewives were navigating a schedule that often left very little room for themselves. One of the most surprising things for modern audiences is how little personal time many women actually had. Looking back through diaries, interviews, magazines, and sociological studies from the era, a pattern begins to emerge. The day belonged to the household first. Personal interests came second. If there was time left, a woman might enjoy reading. She might love painting. She might wish to take classes. She might dream about writing, traveling, or pursuing a profession. But daily responsibilities often consumed the hours needed for those pursuits. This did not happen because women lacked ambition. It happened because the structure of daily life demanded constant attention. Consider something as ordinary as clothing. Today, many people own wardrobes filled with machine-washable garments requiring little maintenance. In the early 1960s, clothing care could become a major project. Certain fabrics required special washing. Many items required ironing. Stains had to be treated manually. Buttons needed replacing. Tears required mending. Children constantly outgrew clothing. Seasonal wardrobes had to be organized and stored. A simple closet represented dozens of future chores waiting quietly in the background. And then there were the beds. Every morning, beds were expected to be made. Not occasionally, not when guests were visiting. Every day. This standard appears repeatedly in household guides from the period. A properly maintained home reflected discipline and respectability. Small details mattered. Wrinkled sheets, dusty shelves, cluttered surfaces. These things attracted attention. The pressure to maintain appearances was woven deeply into social expectations. In many suburban neighborhoods, houses looked remarkably similar from the outside. Neat lawns, driveways, mailboxes, front porches. Because homes shared similar designs, comparisons became easy. People noticed who maintained their property. People noticed who did not. Lawn care often fell primarily to men, but many outdoor responsibilities still involved women. Gardens required attention. Outdoor furniture required cleaning. Children playing outside created additional laundry and cleanup. The boundary between indoor and outdoor work was rarely clear. The responsibilities flowed back and forth throughout the day. Meanwhile, America itself was experiencing extraordinary economic growth. The post-war boom continued shaping daily life. Many families enjoyed a standard of living that previous generations could scarcely imagine. Televisions, refrigerators, automobiles, electric appliances. These items transformed household life in countless ways. Yet prosperity also created new expectations. Families acquired more possessions. More possessions required more maintenance. More maintenance created more work. A larger home demanded additional cleaning. More clothing created more laundry. More consumer goods meant more organization. Progress brought benefits, but it rarely eliminated responsibility. One often overlooked aspect of the 1960s housewives' routine involved shopping beyond groceries. Children needed shoes. School supplies wore out. Household equipment broke. Holiday gifts required planning. Seasonal decorations appeared and disappeared throughout the year. Every purchase involved decisions. Should the family spend money now or wait? Was a cheaper option acceptable? Would a more expensive item last longer? These choices accumulated over time. Managing them effectively became part of the invisible expertise many homemakers developed. The role also required diplomacy. Families are complicated. Children argue. Siblings compete. Relatives disagree. Neighbors occasionally create tension. Someone often needed to smooth conflicts before they grew larger. In many households, that responsibility fell heavily upon mothers. They listened. They mediated. They reassured. They encouraged. This emotional labor rarely appeared in discussions about housework, yet it consumed enormous amounts of energy. Listening to a worried child after school. Comforting someone who felt excluded. Helping family members navigate disappointment. These tasks left no visible evidence when completed successfully. Yet they mattered tremendously. A clean kitchen could be photographed. A well-supported child could not. As historians later examined family life during this period, many noted that emotional responsibilities frequently remained unrecognized despite their importance. By early afternoon, countless women found themselves moving between physical work and emotional work without even separating the two. A phone call from a concerned relative, a child needing help with a problem, a husband facing stress at work, a neighbor experiencing difficulty. The housewife often became the central support figure connecting everyone together. At the same time, popular culture continued presenting highly polished images of domestic life. Television programs often portrayed family problems being resolved neatly within 30 minutes. Advertisements suggested that the right product could eliminate household stress. Real life, of course, was messier. Problems rarely followed scripts. Solutions rarely arrived instantly. The contrast between idealized media portrayals and daily reality could feel significant. Many women quietly wondered whether others managed their homes more successfully. In truth, most families faced similar challenges. They simply rarely discussed them openly. The expectation of appearing composed remained powerful. As afternoons slowly shifted toward evening, meal preparation once again returned to the forefront. Dinner remained a central ritual in American family life. Nutrition experts, educators, and community leaders frequently emphasized the importance of family meals. As a result, many mothers devoted considerable effort to planning balanced dinners. Vegetables, proteins, side dishes, desserts. Everything required coordination. A successful meal represented more than food. It represented care, responsibility, competence, love. That symbolic importance increased the pressure surrounding everyday cooking. Failure felt personal. Success often went unnoticed because it was expected. And perhaps that expectation explains part of the exhaustion. Many of the most demanding responsibilities carried no special recognition. The reward for completing today's work successfully was often receiving tomorrow's work. The household continued functioning. The family remained cared for. Life moved forward. The cycle repeated. As darkness approached and another evening settled over suburban streets, women across America found themselves performing familiar tasks once more. Checking school assignments, preparing clothing for the next day, organizing breakfast plans, reviewing shopping needs, locking doors, turning off lights, straightening rooms. The visible work gradually ended. The mental checklist continued. Because somewhere in the back of their minds remained an awareness that tomorrow's responsibilities were already waiting. And as the decade advanced, another question quietly began appearing alongside those responsibilities. If women were capable of managing so much every day, what else might they be capable of accomplishing beyond the walls of the home? If women were capable of managing so much every day, what else might they be capable of accomplishing beyond the walls of the home? That question did not suddenly appear one morning. It emerged gradually, quietly, almost invisibly. For many women in the early 1960s, life remained centered on family responsibilities. Yet beneath the familiar routines of cooking, cleaning, shopping, and childcare, larger social changes were beginning to unfold across the United States. Most housewives were not spending their afternoons leading national movements or making headlines. They were folding laundry, balancing budgets, preparing dinner, helping children with homework. But history often grows from ordinary lives rather than extraordinary ones. And while the nation changed around them, these women continued carrying the responsibilities that held households together. One important reality of the era involved transportation. Today, many families own multiple vehicles. In the early 1960s, a single-car household remained common. The family car often accompanied the husband to work each morning. This meant many women planned entire days around limited transportation. Walking became necessary. Neighborhood stores remained important. Bus routes mattered. Errands had to be carefully organized. A forgotten grocery item could create significant inconvenience. A simple trip to purchase one missing ingredient was not always possible. As a result, planning became a valuable skill. Successful homemakers learned to think ahead. Tomorrow's meals, next week's groceries, upcoming birthdays, seasonal needs. The future constantly occupied part of their attention. This forward-thinking approach saved time and money, but it also required mental energy. Even moments of apparent rest often involved planning. The average suburban home itself created ongoing responsibilities. During the post-war housing boom, millions of families moved into newly built developments. These homes offered modern comforts compared with earlier generations, yet they still demanded maintenance. Floors needed cleaning. Windows accumulated dust. Bathrooms required scrubbing. Furniture required care. Appliances occasionally malfunctioned. Housekeeping guides from the era sometimes broke tasks into daily schedules. Monday might focus on laundry. Tuesday might focus on ironing. Wednesday could involve deeper cleaning. Thursday might be shopping day. Friday often prepared the home for the weekend. These systems helped manage workloads, but they also reveal how much work existed in the first place. Entire days were assigned to specific categories of chores. And despite careful organization, unexpected events constantly interrupted those plans. Children became sick. Guests arrived unexpectedly. Household items broke. Schedules changed. Life rarely followed a perfect routine. Many women adapted by becoming remarkably flexible problem solvers. This ability rarely appeared in job descriptions because housekeeping was not commonly viewed as a profession. Yet managing a household required organization, budgeting, scheduling, logistics, nutrition planning, conflict resolution, and crisis management. The skills were real even when society failed to recognize them fully. Throughout the early 1960s, magazines aimed at homemakers often reflected a fascinating contradiction. On one page, readers found advice about baking, cleaning, and decorating. On another, they encountered articles discussing education, world affairs, and changing social expectations. American women were not isolated from the larger world. They read newspapers. They listened to radio broadcasts. They watched evening news programs. Major events entered their homes daily. The administration of President John F. Kennedy attracted enormous public attention. The space race captivated the nation. Civil rights demonstrations appeared increasingly in news coverage. International tensions remained high throughout the Cold War. Women discussed these issues with friends, neighbors, relatives, and family members. Yet after those conversations ended, dinner still needed preparing. This contrast between historic events and everyday responsibilities formed a defining feature of ordinary life. The world seemed to move quickly. The household required steady attention. Both realities existed simultaneously. By mid-afternoon, another familiar challenge emerged. Children returning home brought more than school books. They brought activity, energy, noise, questions, requests. One child might need help locating a missing assignment. Another might need transportation to an activity. A younger child might simply want attention after spending the day at school. Modern parents often divide these responsibilities between multiple adults while juggling careers. Many 1960s housewives handled them almost entirely alone during working hours. The emotional demands could be substantial. Patience became essential. So did endurance. And unlike paid employment, family life offered few opportunities to step away temporarily when frustration appeared. One particularly exhausting aspect of homemaking involved repetition. Human beings often find satisfaction in completing projects. A building gets constructed. A report gets finished. A product gets manufactured. Household work rarely operated this way. The dishes washed tonight returned tomorrow. The floor cleaned this morning became dirty again. The laundry folded today reappeared next week. Progress constantly reset itself. This endless cycle challenged even the most diligent individuals. Historians studying domestic labor frequently point to repetition as a major source of fatigue, not because the tasks themselves were impossible, because they never truly ended. During the evening hours, many families gathered around television programs that became part of American cultural life. The television occupied a central position within the living room. Families watched together. Advertisements filled commercial breaks. Those advertisements often targeted housewives directly. Manufacturers promoted cleaning products, kitchen appliances, prepared foods, household conveniences. The message remained consistent. A better product could make homemaking easier. Sometimes that was true. Often it merely changed one small part of a much larger workload. After television viewing came preparations for bedtime. Children brushed teeth. School items were organized. Clothing was prepared for morning. Parents reviewed schedules. The household gradually quieted. Outside, neighborhood lights glowed softly against the darkness. Inside, many women finally experienced a few moments of relative calm. Yet those quiet moments often encouraged reflection. Some thought about family goals. Others worried about finances. Some considered future opportunities. Others simply hoped tomorrow would proceed smoothly. The image of the perfectly content suburban homemaker presented by popular culture never fully captured these private thoughts. Real people rarely fit simple stereotypes. Some women loved domestic life. Some struggled with it. Many experienced both feelings at different times. The historical record shows tremendous variety beneath the surface of seemingly similar households. And as America moved deeper into the 1960s, that variety would become increasingly visible. New conversations were beginning. New expectations were emerging. New possibilities were slowly entering public discussion. But on this particular evening, inside thousands of homes across the country, tomorrow remained the most immediate concern. Breakfast would need preparing. Laundry would need attention. Children would need guidance. Dinner would need cooking. The responsibilities waiting beyond sunrise remained as dependable as the sunrise itself. And for women already carrying so much, the decades coming changes would raise questions that previous generations had rarely been asked to answer. And for women already carrying so much, the decades coming changes would raise questions that previous generations had rarely been asked to answer. Yet before those larger changes became visible, daily life continued along familiar paths. The ordinary weekday remained the foundation upon which everything else rested. A typical housewife in 1963 or 1964 often measured time not by headlines but by routines. The morning coffee, the school bus, the grocery list, the afternoon homework, the evening meal. These recurring moments formed the structure of life. Looking back today, one of the easiest mistakes is to imagine the 1960s as a decade that changed all at once. In reality, much of America still looked surprisingly traditional, especially inside suburban households. Children rode bicycles through quiet streets. Milk was delivered in some communities. Local stores knew regular customers by name. Neighbors often spoke face-to-face rather than through screens. Communication moved more slowly. Information traveled differently. And because communication was slower, planning ahead became even more important. If a mother forgot an appointment, no smartphone reminder would appear. If she misplaced an important date, no digital calendar would send a notification. Everything depended upon memory, handwritten notes, wall calendars, and habit. Many kitchens featured calendars hanging near telephones. Important dates filled the squares. Doctor visits, school meetings, birthdays, church events, community activities. These calendars became command centers for family life. The responsibility for maintaining them usually fell to the woman of the house. This organizational role might seem small, but it affected nearly every member of the family. A missed appointment could disrupt an entire week. A forgotten event might disappoint a child. Keeping everything running smoothly required constant attention. And attention itself is work. As the day progressed, many women also handled household correspondence. Letters remained an important form of communication. Relatives living in other states often exchanged regular mail. Thank you notes were expected. Holiday cards required preparation. Family news traveled through handwritten letters rather than instant messages. Maintaining these relationships demanded effort. Writing, addressing envelopes, purchasing stamps, visiting the mailbox. Simple tasks individually, yet another collection of responsibilities added to an already crowded day. Meanwhile, shopping habits reveal much about daily life during this period. Many foods available today did not exist in their modern forms. Meal preparation remained closely tied to fresh ingredients and home cooking. A woman often knew exactly what ingredients were available in her pantry because she personally managed them. She knew how many eggs remained, how much milk was left, whether flour needed replacing, whether enough ingredients existed for tomorrow's dinner. Inventory management happened constantly, though nobody called it that. It was simply part of running a household. The physical nature of housekeeping also deserves attention. Modern discussions sometimes overlook how much movement these routines required. Vacuum cleaners were heavier. Cleaning products required more manual effort. Laundry baskets were carried from room to room. Groceries were lifted and transported. Beds required bending and stretching. Floors required scrubbing. A woman might spend hours on her feet without considering it unusual. Fitness tracking devices did not exist. No one counted steps. Yet many housewives accumulated significant physical activity through ordinary chores alone. This effort became even more demanding for mothers with young children. Toddlers required near-constant supervision. Infants required feeding schedules. Diapers required changing. Naps affected household timing. A single unexpected situation could disrupt carefully arranged plans. Parents today understand this challenge immediately. Children rarely cooperate perfectly with schedules. The same was true 60 years ago. One sick child could transform an ordinary day into an exhausting one. One accident could create hours of additional work. One emotional crisis could consume an entire afternoon. The unpredictability of family life remained constant across generations. What differed was the amount of outside support available. Many women managed these situations with limited assistance during working hours. Throughout suburban America, afternoons often carried a particular atmosphere. The morning rush had ended. The evening rush had not yet begun. Sunlight filtered through windows. Radios played softly in kitchens. Washing machines hummed in utility rooms. Neighborhood sounds drifted through open windows. Children's voices echoed from yards and sidewalks. It was during these quieter hours that many women experienced moments of reflection. Not necessarily long periods of rest, just brief pauses between responsibilities. A cup of coffee at the kitchen table, a few pages of a magazine, a conversation with a neighbor, a glance through the newspaper, small moments that interrupted the rhythm of work. For some women, these moments felt refreshing. For others, they highlighted feelings of isolation. Historians examining interviews from the era often encounter both experiences. Some homemakers described deep satisfaction in family life. Others spoke about loneliness. Many expressed both emotions at different points in their lives. Human experience rarely fits into simple categories. The popular image of the 1960s housewife sometimes suggests a single shared experience. The reality was much more complex. Economic circumstances varied. Regional cultures differed. Personal ambitions shaped perspectives. Family relationships influenced daily life. No two households operated exactly alike. Yet certain pressures appeared again and again. One of those pressures involved appearances. A well-maintained home represented more than cleanliness. It symbolized responsibility, discipline, family pride. Visitors formed impressions quickly. Unexpected guests were not uncommon. A neighbor might stop by. A relative might visit. A church acquaintance might arrive unexpectedly. Because of this possibility, many women felt pressure to keep homes presentable at all times. This expectation created a constant background awareness. A sink full of dishes could feel stressful. An untidy living room could feel embarrassing. A missed household task could linger in the mind. These concerns may seem minor individually. Combined over months and years, they became significant sources of pressure. As evening approached once more, familiar routines returned. The sounds of children playing gradually faded. Cars appeared in driveways. Front doors opened. Families reunited after spending the day apart. Dinner preparations entered their final stages. Tables were set. Food was served. Conversations resumed. And beneath those ordinary conversations, America continued changing. New ideas circulated. Social expectations evolved. Opportunities slowly expanded. The nation stood on the edge of transformations that would reshape family life in ways few people could fully predict. But inside the kitchen, standing beside the stove after another long day, those future changes still felt distant. The immediate reality remained simple. The meal needed serving. The family needed care. The dishes would soon require washing. And tomorrow morning, before much of the neighborhood awakened, the routine would begin all over again. And tomorrow morning, before much of the neighborhood awakened, the routine would begin all over again. For many women, that predictability was both comforting and exhausting. Human beings often find security in routines. Knowing what comes next can reduce uncertainty. Yet when every day follows a similar pattern for months or years, routine can also feel relentless. The life of a 1960s American housewife frequently balanced between those two realities. There was comfort in caring for family. There was pride in maintaining a home. There was satisfaction in solving problems and creating stability. But there was also repetition. A great deal of repetition. One task that occupied a surprising amount of time was food preservation and storage. Modern consumers often take constant refrigeration and abundant grocery options for granted. In the 1960s, refrigerators were common, but careful food management remained essential. Leftovers were rarely wasted casually. Meals were often planned around ingredients already available. A roast prepared for dinner might provide sandwiches the next day. Vegetables could appear in multiple meals. Nothing was taken lightly when household budgets mattered. This required planning several days ahead. A successful homemaker often knew what the family would eat not only tonight, but tomorrow and sometimes the day after. That level of organization reduced waste and controlled expenses. It also meant constantly thinking ahead. As historians examine household records from the era, they often notice how much attention women devoted to efficiency. Coupons were clipped carefully. Sales were tracked. Bulk purchases were considered strategically. Many women became highly skilled managers without ever receiving formal recognition for those abilities. The household itself functioned almost like a small business. Resources had to be allocated. Supplies had to be monitored. Schedules had to be maintained. Unexpected problems required immediate solutions. And unlike a business, the operation never closed. There was another responsibility that often remains invisible when discussing this period. Hospitality. American social culture placed significant value on hosting guests. Neighbors visited. Relatives stopped by. Church groups gathered. Children invited friends home. Entertaining was often considered part of maintaining social relationships. A woman might spend hours preparing for guests, cleaning additional rooms, preparing refreshments, organizing seating, planning meals, ensuring everything appeared welcoming. The event itself might last only a few hours. Preparation and cleanup could consume an entire day. In photographs from the era, gatherings often appear effortless. Smiling faces, decorated tables, neatly arranged food. What the camera rarely captured was the work that happened beforehand. By the middle of the decade, another factor began affecting many households. Consumer culture was growing rapidly. Advertisements encouraged families to purchase new products regularly. Kitchen gadgets, cleaning tools, furniture, decorations, clothing. The promise was always similar. A new purchase could improve life. Sometimes it did. Other times, it simply added another item requiring maintenance. The modern home was becoming increasingly full of possessions. And possessions require management. Closets became crowded. Storage spaces filled. Children accumulated toys. Seasonal decorations required organization. The more a family owned, the more effort became necessary to maintain order. This phenomenon remains familiar today. Yet many people forget that it was already becoming noticeable during the 1960s. At the same time, expectations regarding children were evolving. Parents were encouraged to become increasingly involved in education and development. Schools communicated regularly with families. Teachers expected cooperation. Community organizations offered activities. Mothers frequently served as the connection point between institutions and children. Permission forms, school projects, parent meetings, fundraising activities, transportation arrangements, all required attention. A mother's work extended far beyond the walls of the home. She often acted as coordinator, organizer, advocate, and planner for every member of the family. And while performing those duties, she remained responsible for household operations as well. It is easy to understand why many women reported feeling tired by evening. Their responsibilities did not belong to one category. They belonged to dozens. Physical work blended with emotional work. Planning blended with execution. Family care blended with household management. The boundaries between tasks constantly overlapped. During quieter moments, women often turned to magazines for entertainment and information. Publications aimed at homemakers filled grocery store shelves and living room tables. They offered recipes, decorating ideas, fashion advice, childcare recommendations, relationship guidance, health information. The articles reflected both the aspirations and anxieties of the era. Readers were encouraged to create ideal homes while simultaneously adapting to a rapidly changing world. Some advice seems dated today. Some remains surprisingly familiar. The desire to create a safe, comfortable family environment has changed very little over the decades. What has changed are the tools available to accomplish that goal. As evening approached once more, household rhythms accelerated. Children completed homework. Parents discussed schedules. Dinner filled the kitchen with familiar smells. Television news brought reports from across the nation and around the world. Stories of social change, political developments, and technological progress entered ordinary homes each night. The contrast could be striking. Astronauts trained for future space missions. Scientists developed new technologies. National leaders debated global issues. Meanwhile, someone still had to wash dishes after dinner. History and ordinary life existed side by side. Neither replaced the other. For many housewives, one of the most difficult challenges involved the lack of clear recognition. A worker might receive praise from a supervisor. An athlete might receive applause. A student might receive grades. Household success often appeared as normalcy. If everything functioned smoothly, people simply expected it. The reward for success was frequently the absence of problems. Family members enjoyed clean clothing. Meals appeared on time. Appointments were remembered. The household operated efficiently. These outcomes represented countless hours of labor, yet they could easily be overlooked because they seemed ordinary. Perhaps that is one reason historians have become increasingly interested in domestic life. The ordinary experiences of millions of people helped shape society just as surely as famous events did. The routines inside kitchens, laundry rooms, grocery stores, schools, and neighborhoods formed the foundation upon which larger historical changes rested. And as another day slowly drew to a close, women across America prepared once again for tomorrow. Lunches would need packing. Breakfast ingredients would need checking. Schedules would need reviewing. Responsibilities would need managing. The cycle continued. But beneath the familiar routines, the country was moving toward a period of change that would eventually alter how many Americans thought about work, family, opportunity, and the role of women themselves. Those changes were still developing, yet their first signs were already beginning to appear, quietly, in conversations taking place around countless kitchen tables. Those changes were still developing, yet their first signs were already beginning to appear, quietly, in conversations taking place around countless kitchen tables. Most of those conversations were not dramatic. They did not sound like speeches. They did not resemble the moments that later appear in documentaries. Instead, they often emerged through ordinary questions. Questions about education. Questions about work. Questions about the future. Questions about what life might look like 10 or 20 years ahead. For many American housewives, the mid-1960s became a period of reflection as much as routine. The daily responsibilities remained largely unchanged. Breakfast still had to be prepared. Laundry still accumulated. Children still required attention. Yet new possibilities were slowly entering public discussion. To understand why this mattered, it helps to remember the expectations many women had grown up with. A large number were raised during the 1940s and 1950s. They had experienced a world shaped by war, recovery, and economic growth. Marriage and motherhood were often presented as the primary goals of adulthood. Popular culture reinforced these messages constantly. Films, television programs, advertisements, magazine articles. The ideal image appeared again and again. A successful woman maintained a beautiful home, cared for her family, and supported her husband's career. Many women embraced this vision sincerely. Others accepted it because alternatives seemed limited, and many felt a mixture of both. The reality of human experience is rarely simple. What makes the daily routine of a 1960s housewife so fascinating is that it existed at the intersection of tradition and change. The routines themselves often resembled those of previous generations. Cooking, cleaning, childcare, household management. Yet the world surrounding those routines was evolving rapidly. Technology advanced. Education expanded. Economic opportunities increased. Cultural attitudes shifted. These larger developments slowly filtered into ordinary homes. Meanwhile, the practical demands of daily life remained relentless. One frequently overlooked responsibility involved clothing management. Every season brought new requirements. Winter coats needed storage when warmer weather arrived. Summer clothing required organization. Children's wardrobes demanded constant adjustment as they grew. School clothes wore out. Shoes required replacement. Special occasions required preparation. A mother often knew the condition of every family member's clothing without needing to check. This knowledge developed through daily attention. She knew which shirt needed a button, which dress required mending, which child would soon outgrow a pair of shoes. Such awareness sounds minor until one realizes how many details it involved. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, maintained continuously over the course of years. Then there was the challenge of illness. Modern medicine had made remarkable progress by the 1960s, yet ordinary sickness remained a regular part of family life. Children caught colds. Seasonal flu spread through schools. Minor injuries occurred. Someone had to provide care. Someone had to monitor symptoms. Someone had to remain calm when a child developed a fever late at night. In most households, that responsibility fell primarily upon mothers. The emotional burden could be considerable. Parents naturally worry when children become ill. For many women, concern for family members accompanied every other responsibility they carried. At the same time, community life remained highly active. Neighborhoods often possessed a stronger local identity than many modern communities. Children played together outdoors. Parents knew one another. Churches organized events. Schools hosted activities. Relationships developed through repeated face-to-face interactions. These social networks offered support. They also created expectations. Participation mattered. Attendance mattered. Reputation mattered. Being viewed as a responsible member of the community carried importance. As a result, many women invested significant energy into maintaining those connections. The work extended beyond the household. It became part of the broader social fabric. One fascinating aspect of this era involves the role of expertise. Although homemaking was often undervalued publicly, many women developed highly specialized knowledge. They understood nutrition, household budgeting, textile care, child development, meal planning, home maintenance, consumer products, local services, medical recommendations, educational expectations. Their expertise emerged through experience rather than formal job titles. Yet it was expertise nonetheless. A household operating smoothly often depended upon years of accumulated knowledge. Visitors rarely noticed this expertise because it blended seamlessly into daily life. The better it functioned, the less visible it became. By late afternoon, familiar patterns returned. Children arrived home carrying stories from school. Snack preparations began. Homework supervision followed. Telephone calls interrupted schedules. Errands required attention. Dinner preparation moved steadily forward. The pace increased. Many women describe this period as one of the busiest parts of the day. Several responsibilities converged simultaneously. A child needed help. Food required cooking. Laundry awaited folding. A phone call demanded attention. The doorbell rang. The family dog needed care. Life unfolded through overlapping demands. Multitasking was not a modern invention. Many housewives practiced it continuously. As evening approached, family dinners remained one of the most important rituals in American life. Researchers later studying family dynamics often noted how frequently households gathered around the dinner table during this period. The meal served practical purposes. It also served social ones. Family members exchanged information. Parents monitored children's experiences. Relationships strengthened through conversation. the housewife often orchestrated the entire event. Planning, preparing, serving, cleaning afterward. Each stage required effort. Yet dinner represented only one portion of the day. When viewed from start to finish, the workload becomes striking. Hours of physical labor, hours of mental planning, hours of emotional support, repeated day after day, week after week, year after year. And perhaps this explains why many modern people would find the routine exhausting. Not because any single task was impossible, because the tasks never truly stopped. One responsibility flowed directly into the next. A successful day did not reduce tomorrow's workload. It simply prepared the household to function smoothly again. As darkness settled over suburban streets and living room lamps illuminated family homes, many women finally reached the quieter hours of the evening. Children drifted toward bedtime. Television programs played softly in the background. Neighborhood activity diminished. For a brief moment, the pace slowed. Yet even during these calmer hours, larger changes continued moving through American society. New ideas appeared in books. New conversations emerged in magazines. New expectations began forming among younger generations. The country stood on the edge of transformations that would eventually reshape millions of lives. But on this particular evening, inside an ordinary American home, tomorrow still seemed much closer than the future. And tomorrow's responsibilities were already waiting patiently for the first sound of the morning alarm clock. And tomorrow's responsibilities were already waiting patiently for the first sound of the morning alarm clock. Morning in a 1960s American household rarely began gently. It began with urgency. The housewife's day was often shaped not by how she felt, but by what had to be done before everyone else in the family started their day. Before children woke fully. Before a husband left for work. Before school buses arrived. Before the household shifted into motion. There was a narrow window of control in those early hours, and it mattered greatly. Coffee first. Always. For many families, coffee was not just a beverage. It was part of the morning structure, almost a signal that the day had officially begun. The smell-filled kitchens in suburban homes across the country, cutting through the quiet of early morning. At the same time, breakfast preparation unfolded alongside it. Eggs cracked into pans, bread toasted, milk poured, cereal bowls set out. Pancakes flipped on weekends when there was slightly more time, though even weekends carried their own pressures. Children's routines followed closely behind. Clothes laid out the night before were checked again. Hair was brushed. Shoes were located. School items were gathered. Lunches were packed carefully, often with handwritten notes or simple food combinations designed to be both affordable and practical. Nothing about this process was random. It was a system, even if it was not called one. And like any system, it depended on one person holding all the pieces together. Once the family left the house, a very different phase of the day began. The silence that followed was often described in different ways by women of the era. Some called it peaceful. Others called it empty. Many described it as both. Because silence in a household was not rest. It was opportunity. Opportunity to clean. Opportunity to organize. Opportunity to catch up on everything delayed from the previous day. The first major task for many was laundry. The clothes accumulated quickly in a household with children. School uniforms or daily outfits needed washing. Towels needed replacing. Sheets might be rotated depending on the schedule. Even with electric washing machines becoming more common, laundry was not a single action. It was a process. Sorting, washing, transferring, drying, folding, ironing, storing. Each stage required attention, and each stage carried its own interruptions. A machine finishing mid-cycle did not wait. Clothes left too long wrinkled. Timing mattered. While laundry ran in the background, other chores filled the foreground. Vacuuming carpets in living rooms and hallways. Dusting shelves and furniture. Scrubbing kitchen counters. Cleaning bathrooms. Polishing surfaces that had already been polished the week before. The repetition was constant, and yet necessary. Homes in the 1960s were expected to maintain a certain standard of appearance, especially in suburban communities where social life was tightly connected to visible impressions. Even something as simple as an unmade bed could feel significant. Not because it was physically difficult, but because it symbolized unfinished responsibility. By mid-morning, attention often shifted toward shopping preparation or errands. Grocery stores were becoming more modern during this era, with larger supermarkets replacing smaller neighborhood shops in many areas. Bright aisles, packaged goods, new brands competing for attention. But shopping still required planning. Lists were written on paper, sometimes revised multiple times before leaving the house. Prices were compared in memory or by experience. Coupons were clipped and carried. Transportation had to be arranged. In households with one car, timing mattered even more. A missed opportunity to shop meant adjusting the entire week's meal plan. Food preparation itself remained deeply connected to this cycle. Dinner was not an isolated event. It was the result of planning that began days earlier. Ingredients were selected not only based on preference but on budget, availability, and practicality. Meals were often structured around what could stretch the farthest. A single roast could become multiple meals. Vegetables might be reused across dishes. Bread and leftovers were rarely discarded without thought. This was not wastefulness, it was efficiency born from necessity and expectation. And behind all of this was the mental tracking that never stopped. What is running low? What needs replacing? What will tomorrow require? What might next week bring? It is this constant internal accounting that often defines the experience of domestic labor during this period more than any single physical task. Because even when sitting still, the mind rarely did. As late morning approached, some women found brief moments that resembled rest. A cup of coffee at the kitchen table, a radio playing softly in the background, a magazine opened halfway through an article. But even these moments were often interrupted by small demands. The doorbell, the telephone, a child returning early, a neighbor stopping by. The structure of the home meant that availability was constant. The housewife was present and therefore reachable. This accessibility became part of the role itself. Unlike formal employment, there was no separation between working hours and personal hours. The home contained both simultaneously. As afternoon neared, energy levels often shifted again. The second wave of the day approached. Children would return. Meals would need preparation again. Homework would require attention. Emotions would need management. And the cycle would continue forward, steady and unbroken. But beneath the surface of repetition, something subtle was happening across many households. Awareness. Quiet awareness. A growing recognition that life, while structured, might not be fixed in its form forever. Ideas were beginning to circulate, not loudly, not dramatically, but persistently, through conversations, through media, through education, through changing expectations. And though most days still looked the same, the future was slowly, quietly, assembling itself in the background of ordinary life. For now, however, the present remained dominant. The kitchen still needed cleaning. The laundry still needed folding. And tomorrow would arrive just like today did. Without delay, without pause, and without asking whether anyone felt ready. That was perhaps one of the defining characteristics of daily life in the 1960s household. It moved forward regardless of readiness, mood, or fatigue. Once afternoon arrived, the house transformed again. Not into silence, as in the early morning hours, but into activity. Children returning from school changed the entire atmosphere of the home almost instantly. Doors opening and closing, voices overlapping, footsteps through hallways, backpacks dropped near tables or chairs, questions arriving before coats were even removed. What's for snack? Can I go outside? Do I have homework today? Where's my book? Each question required attention, and each answer often led to another task. Snack preparation came first for many households. Simple foods, often quick to assemble. Milk poured into glasses. Bread and spreads prepared. Leftovers from earlier meals sometimes reused. Fruit sliced or served whole depending on availability. It was not simply feeding children, it was resetting their energy for the next phase of the day. Homework supervision followed closely. During this period in American education, there was growing emphasis on structured learning at home. Parents were expected to reinforce school lessons. Even when mothers had not completed advanced schooling themselves, they were still expected to guide children through assignments, spelling exercises, reading comprehension, basic mathematics, writing practice, science projects that sometimes required materials from around the home. This created a subtle but continuous demand for intellectual engagement. Even after hours of physical work, the mind had to shift into teaching and guidance. Meanwhile, the household itself continued operating in parallel. Laundry still needed attention. Dishes accumulated from earlier meals. Dinner preparation had to begin early enough to be ready on time. The kitchen often became the central workspace of the entire home, not just for cooking, but for organizing life itself. Many women in this era developed an almost instinctive sense of timing. When to start boiling water, when to preheat the oven, when to begin chopping vegetables, so everything finished together. Meal timing was not flexible. It was coordinated around family schedules. Husbands returning from work expected dinner at a certain hour. Children's routines depended on it. Even small delays could shift the entire evening rhythm. This pressure created a constant background awareness of time. Not clocks alone, but internal clocks. A sense of pacing built through repetition. By mid-afternoon, household management expanded into additional responsibilities. Telephone calls often increased during this period. Schools contacting parents. Relatives checking in. Friends arranging visits or sharing news. Appointments being confirmed or adjusted. Unlike modern communication, these calls could not be ignored easily. The phone represented immediate responsibility. Answering it often meant accepting new tasks. At the same time, physical chores continued in cycles. Straightening rooms, preparing ingredients, checking supplies, folding laundry left earlier in the day. Small tasks accumulated continuously because they were rarely completed in isolation. A kitchen cleaned in the morning would be used again by noon. A floor swept in the afternoon would gather dust by evening. The home functioned like a living environment rather than a static space. And that meant maintenance was constant. One of the more subtle aspects of this lifestyle was how interruptions shaped time. Unlike structured office environments where tasks could be completed in blocks, household work was fragmented. A single activity might be paused multiple times. Cooking interrupted by a child's request. Cleaning interrupted by a knock at the door. Planning interrupted by a phone call. This fragmentation made it difficult to measure progress in traditional terms. Nothing felt fully finished, only temporarily managed. As evening approached again, attention shifted toward dinner preparation. This was often the most structured meal of the day, a central point around which family life revolved. In many homes, dinner was not just about nutrition, it was about presence. Families sitting together, discussing their day, sharing news, observing one another's moods and concerns. The housewife often acted as coordinator of this entire process, ensuring that food was ready, that timing aligned, that everyone was served, that cleanup followed afterward. The physical labor of dinner extended beyond cooking. It included serving, managing children's needs, handling unexpected issues, and then the cleanup that followed immediately afterward. Washing dishes, clearing counters, wiping tables, organizing leftovers, resetting the kitchen for the next morning. Even after dinner ended, the work did not conclude. Evening brought another layer of responsibility. Children preparing for bed, bath routines, school clothes laid out for tomorrow, lunch items considered and prepared in advance, quiet household organization tasks that often stretched late into the night. Only after all visible activity ended did the house finally become still. But even then, mental work continued. Reviewing the next day, anticipating needs, rechecking plans, ensuring nothing had been forgotten. This mental continuation is what many later observers identify as one of the most demanding aspects of the role. The body rested, but the mind remained active. And so, in the quiet of nighttime suburban homes across America, another pattern formed. one that repeated not only daily but over years. A cycle of preparation, execution, management, and anticipation. And somewhere within that cycle, the early signs of change continued to grow, quietly waiting for the moment when they would become impossible to ignore. Quietly waiting for the moment when they would become impossible to ignore. But in the early to mid-1960s, those changes still lived mostly in the background of ordinary life. The foreground remained unchanged. Routine, responsibility, and repetition. A new day in a suburban American home still began with familiar structure. The kitchen light switching on before sunrise. The sound of footsteps before the rest of the house stirred. The preparation of breakfast before anyone else was fully awake. There was a kind of silent choreography to it, learned through repetition rather than instruction. Many women did not consciously think about each step anymore. It had become embedded knowledge, automatic in execution, yet still requiring attention. Coffee first, then heat, then food, then children, then husband, then the house itself. Each element of the morning depended on timing. If one part fell behind, everything else shifted with it. Breakfast preparation, for example, was rarely a single dish. It was a coordinated set of small tasks happening at once. Eggs cooking while toast browned, milk poured while cereal bowls were set out, lunch items prepared simultaneously to save time later, and all of it occurring before the first major transition of the day, departure. Once the family left, the house did not become empty so much as it became active in a different way. The visible movement of people disappeared. The invisible movement of work began. This transition is important in understanding the lived experience of the period, because it shows how domestic labor was structured around absence and return. The family left. The house reset itself. The housewife maintained it. Then the family returned, and the cycle repeated. Laundry often defined the early part of this cycle. Clothing was not simply cleaned, it was processed through stages. Sorting by color and fabric. Washing in cycles. Drying carefully, depending on weather or machine availability. Folding into categories. Ironing when required. Storing in designated places. Each step required both physical effort and attention to detail. Mistakes had consequences. A missed stain could become permanent. A misplaced item could disrupt the entire week's clothing plan. Ironing, in particular, represented one of the more time-intensive domestic tasks of the era. Clothing styles of the period often required pressing to maintain appearance. Wrinkles were less socially acceptable than they are in many modern casual dress cultures. Table linens, shirts, school clothes, and even some everyday garments were expected to appear neat. The iron itself required setup, heat, and careful handling. It could not simply be rushed. And so ironing became a task often completed in long, uninterrupted stretches when possible, frequently while listening to radio programs or, later in the decade, television in the background. This blending of tasks with media became a quiet feature of domestic life. Not relaxation in the modern sense, but multitasking within the household environment. Meanwhile, cleaning routines continued across the home. Different rooms demanded different forms of attention. The kitchen required constant surface cleaning due to repeated use. The bathroom required sanitation-focused tasks. Living areas required dusting and vacuuming. Bedrooms required organization and maintenance. Each space had its own rhythm of upkeep, and each space returned to disorder at its own pace. One of the most psychologically challenging aspects of this structure was the absence of finality. In many types of work, completion produces closure. A finished product, a closed case, a signed-off task. Household labor rarely provided that sensation. Instead, completion was temporary. A room cleaned in the morning would be used and reshaped by afternoon. A meal prepared would be consumed and followed by cleanup. A laundry cycle would restart within days. This created a continuous loop of maintenance rather than completion. By mid-morning, attention often shifted toward errands or planning. Grocery stores in the 1960s were becoming larger and more standardized. Supermarkets expanded across suburban regions, offering a wider range of packaged and fresh goods. This expansion changed shopping patterns, but not necessarily workload. because while selection increased, so did decision-making. Choosing products, comparing prices, managing coupons, planning meals around available ingredients. Shopping lists became strategic documents rather than simple reminders. Each item represented a decision about cost, nutrition, and timing. Transportation shaped this process significantly. In many households, only one car was available. If the husband used it for work, the housewife had to coordinate errands around its return or rely on walking, buses, or neighbor assistance. This limitation influenced how entire days were structured. Errands were not spontaneous. They were scheduled, sometimes tightly, sometimes carefully spaced across the week. As afternoon approached, the household shifted once again into preparation mode. The return of children from school marked a predictable but demanding transition. Noise levels increased. Movement intensified. Attention fragmented. The house became a center of simultaneous needs. One child required help with homework. Another needed emotional attention. Another simply wanted food or rest. At the same time, dinner preparation could not be delayed too long. Timing remained critical. Cooking too early meant food would cool. Cooking too late meant disruption to the evening routine. Balancing these pressures required constant adjustment. This is where many accounts from the era describe the most intense part of the day. Not a single event, but overlapping demands. Physical tasks layered with emotional ones. Planning layered with interruption. Execution layered with adaptation. As evening finally approached, the structure of the household began to stabilize again. Dinner brought temporary unity. Family members gathered. Conversation occurred. Information was exchanged. And for a brief period, the pace slowed. But even that moment was followed by cleanup. Dishes returned to sinks. Counters needed attention. Kitchen surfaces required resetting. And once again, the environment was prepared for tomorrow. As night settled, the house grew quiet. But quiet did not necessarily mean rest. It often meant transition into mental preparation, reviewing the next day, checking what might be needed, anticipating problems before they occurred, ensuring nothing essential had been forgotten. And so, beneath the stillness of suburban America, the cycle continued. Not dramatically, not loudly, but steadily, and always forward, toward another morning, toward another morning. Morning, in many 1960s American homes, was not simply the start of a day. It was the continuation of a system already in motion. Even while the house was still dark, certain preparations had already begun. Some women would prepare parts of breakfast the night before. Others would mentally rehearse the next day's schedule before falling asleep. What needed to be thawed, what needed to be packed, what needed to be remembered. This mental preparation was as real as any physical task, and it rarely stopped. As dawn approached, the kitchen once again became the center of activity. The same surfaces used for dinner preparation the night before were now reset for breakfast. Counters wiped again. Dishes removed from drying racks. Coffee prepared before anyone else woke. The repetition was not accidental, it was structural. Households were designed around cycles that repeated daily, weekly, and seasonally. In many suburban homes, the kitchen acted almost like a control room. It coordinated movement, meals, schedules, and routines. Everything passed through it. Breakfast marked the first coordination point of the day. Family members moved through the kitchen in different states of awareness. Some fully awake, some half asleep, some already mentally focused on work or school. The housewife, however, was expected to be fully present from the beginning. There was no gradual entry into the day. Responsibility began immediately. Children's clothing was checked again, even if it had been prepared the night before. Lunches were re-verified for contents. Sometimes items were replaced at the last minute based on availability or preference. The idea of final preparation was fluid. Nothing was ever truly final until the family left the house. Even then, adjustments sometimes continued. A forgotten book, a misplaced permission slip, a last-minute change in schedule. All of it required quick adaptation. Once the family departed, the house transitioned again into its daytime state. This transition is important because it highlights the dual nature of domestic life during this period. Externally, it appeared calm. Internally, it was constantly active. Cleaning routines resumed immediately, not because the house became dirty overnight in a dramatic sense, but because maintenance was continuous. Surfaces gathered dust. Dishes accumulated from breakfast. Laundry cycles continued. Beds needed straightening. Floors required attention. And beyond physical tasks, there was the invisible layer of organization. Managing household supplies. Checking pantry levels. Reviewing upcoming obligations. Planning meals for later in the week. This forward planning often took place in small moments. While standing in the kitchen. While folding laundry. While walking between rooms. There was rarely a single designated planning time. It was integrated into everything. During this period, many women also engaged with community information channels. Local newspapers provided updates on events, sales, school notices, and civic activities. Church bulletins circulated announcements. Neighbors shared news informally. Information moved through social networks rather than centralized digital systems. This meta-awareness was often distributed across multiple sources, and remembering it all was part of daily mental labor. By late morning, attention often shifted toward errands or deeper household work. Some women would leave the home to shop. Others would stay and focus on cleaning or organizing. The structure depended heavily on family needs and available resources. Grocery shopping, in particular, remained a central weekly activity. Supermarkets were expanding rapidly across the United States during this time, offering a growing variety of packaged goods. But the experience was still physical and deliberate. Walking aisles, comparing prices, reading labels, calculating totals in real time, managing coupons, transporting bags back home. It was a process that demanded both planning and endurance. And once home, the work did not end. Groceries had to be unpacked, items stored in appropriate places, perishables refrigerated, non-perishables organized. Sometimes this triggered additional cleaning or rearrangement, because new items often revealed old disorganization. Afternoon returned, as it always did, with predictable intensity. Children came back from school. The house shifted from quiet maintenance mode to active engagement mode. Noise increased. Movement increased. Demands multiplied. This period required rapid responsiveness. One child might need immediate attention. Another might require help with homework. Another might simply need to talk about their day. At the same time, dinner preparation often began during this exact window. This overlap created a layered workload that is difficult to fully appreciate without experiencing it directly. Cooking while supervising children. Listening while chopping ingredients. Managing timing while handling interruptions. The kitchen became a place of constant adjustment. Dinner itself was often considered the most important meal of the day in many households. Not only nutritionally but socially. It brought structure to the evening. It created a shared moment in an otherwise fragmented day. And it reinforced family connection through routine presence. But the preparation for that moment was extensive. Ingredients needed coordination. Cooking required timing. Serving required organization. Cleanup required endurance. Even after dinner ended, tasks continued. Dishwashing, counter cleaning, floor maintenance, lunch preparation for the next day, school items checked and repacked, clothing laid out, schedules reviewed. Only after all of this did the household begin to slow. Evening brought a shift in atmosphere. Television often became a central presence. Families gathered in living rooms. Programs provided shared entertainment and cultural reference points. But even during this time, domestic work often continued quietly. Folding laundry, repairing clothing, organizing paperwork, preparing for tomorrow. The day never fully paused. It only changed intensity. And as night settled again over suburban streets, the house finally reached its quietest point. But even in that quiet, the structure remained active in thought. Because tomorrow was already forming in the background, and the cycle, unchanged in its structure, would begin again with the first light of morning. With the first light of morning. That phrase alone carried weight in many 1960s households, because mornings were not flexible. They arrived with structure already attached. The alarm clock did not ask permission. It simply rang, and the day began. By this stage in the routine, many women had already developed what might be described as automatic competence, a state where complex sequences of tasks were performed with minimal conscious deliberation, not because they were simple, but because repetition had refined them. Breakfast preparation followed a familiar internal script. Heat sources activated first. Coffee prepared immediately. Breakfast components coordinated in parallel. Timing managed continuously in the background. This was not multitasking as a modern buzzword describes it. It was layered labor occurring simultaneously across different domains: physical, emotional, and organizational. Children's mornings added another layer of unpredictability. Even when everything was prepared in advance, small disruptions were common. A missing shoe, a forgotten notebook, a spilled drink, a last-minute change in mood or energy. Each disruption required immediate correction, often without slowing the overall timeline. The school schedule did not adjust. The work schedule did not adjust. The household adapted around fixed external structures. Once the family left, the house shifted again into its maintenance phase. But by this point in the cycle, fatigue often accumulated. Not always in a dramatic way, more often as a background condition. A persistent sense of ongoing responsibility. Even when sitting still, awareness remained active. What still needs doing? What comes next? What was forgotten? This cognitive layer of household management is one of the least visible but most demanding aspects of domestic life in this era. Unlike physical labor, it cannot be paused easily. It operates continuously, even during moments of rest. During this period, cleaning routines often became segmented throughout the day rather than completed in single blocks. A room might be partially cleaned in the morning, revisited in the afternoon, and adjusted again in the evening. This fragmentation was not inefficiency, it was adaptation. Household work had to fit around unpredictable interruptions. Telephone calls, visitors, children returning early, sudden errands, changes in weather affecting laundry or chores. Flexibility was not optional, it was essential. At the same time, material culture in 1960s America was expanding rapidly. Homes contained more objects than previous decades. Appliances, furniture, clothing, decorations, books, toys, and household goods accumulated steadily. Each item added convenience or comfort, but each item also added responsibility. Everything required maintenance. Everything required storage. Everything required organization. Even small increases in household possessions created proportional increases in upkeep. This is one of the less obvious reasons domestic workload remained high despite technological advancement. Progress in one area often created new expectations in another. By mid-morning, attention often turned towards structured errands or household management tasks. Meal planning, in particular, was a constant mental process. Unlike modern systems that allow last-minute ordering or delivery, meals required foresight. Ingredients had to be available. Time had to be allocated. Preparation had to be scheduled. And this planning extended beyond a single day. It often spanned an entire week. What will be cooked tomorrow? What ingredients are needed the day after? What is already in the house? What needs to be purchased? These questions were revisited repeatedly, sometimes daily, sometimes multiple times per day. Even brief moments of quiet often became planning moments. Standing at the sink, walking through a room, sitting briefly at a table. The mind continued organizing the household in the background. As afternoon approached again, energy shifted toward anticipation. Children returning home signaled a predictable increase in activity. But predictability did not mean simplicity. Each return brought variation. Different moods, different needs, different conversations. Some children returned cheerful, others tired, others upset. The housewife often acted as the first responder to all of these emotional states, listening, comforting, redirecting, solving small conflicts before they escalated. This emotional labor is often described by historians as one of the defining characteristics of mid-20th century domestic life. It was continuous, unpaid, and largely unrecognized in formal terms. At the same time, physical tasks continued to overlap. Laundry still required attention. Dinner preparation often began early to align with evening schedules. Household cleaning continued in short bursts. Nothing existed in isolation. Everything overlapped. As evening arrived, the household shifted into its most structured social moment, dinner. This was the point where planning, labor, and coordination converged. Meals were not just prepared, they were timed, served, and managed. Family members gathered. Conversation unfolded. Information was exchanged. But even during this moment of unity, the housewife's responsibilities did not fully pause. Serving food, monitoring children, managing timing, observing needs, and afterward, cleaning once again. The cycle of dinner mirrored the cycle of the entire day in miniature. Preparation, execution, cleanup, and then preparation for the next iteration. After dinner, evenings often carried a softer tone, but not necessarily reduced responsibility. Children needed supervision. Clothing needed preparation. School materials needed organization. Household items required resetting. And the mental review of the next day quietly began again. Even in moments of sitting still, the structure of responsibility remained active in thought. What remains undone? What must be done tomorrow? What could be improved? What might be forgotten? This internal dialogue continued well into nighttime hours. And it is here that many accounts from the era converge on a similar observation. The house did not simply demand work during the day. It occupied attention continuously across time, even in rest, even in silence, even in sleep, because the cycle did not end. It only paused briefly before beginning again. It only paused briefly before beginning again. And in that pause, those late-night hours when the house finally quieted, many 1960s housewives experienced a different kind of exhaustion than the physical kind felt during the day. It was the exhaustion of constant mental tracking, a running inventory of everything that had happened and everything that still needed to happen. By the time the rest of the family was asleep, the house had usually been restored to a state of order. Not perfect order, but functional order. Counters cleared, dishes washed, clothes folded or set aside, school items arranged for the morning, lunch components mentally or physically prepared, doors locked, lights turned down, appliances switched off. The visible work of the day ended here, but the invisible work often continued. Many women in this era described what can only be called post-day planning, a quiet mental review that happened after all physical tasks were done. Tomorrow's breakfast, tomorrow's laundry cycle, tomorrow's errands, tomorrow's emotional needs of the household. It was not anxiety in the modern clinical sense, but rather a structured awareness of responsibility. A sense that if something was not remembered now, it might fail later. This kind of thinking shaped the rhythm of sleep itself. Not always fully restful, sometimes interrupted by sudden reminders, a forgotten item, a missed detail, a change in schedule. In many households, paper calendars or handwritten lists acted as external memory systems, pinned to kitchen walls, placed near telephones, kept in drawers. These tools were essential, but they still depended on human maintenance. Someone had to update them. Someone had to interpret them. Someone had to act on them. And in most cases, that someone was the housewife. Meanwhile, outside the home, the world of the 1960s continued to shift at a visible pace. News from Washington, reports from abroad, scientific progress, cultural changes. Television brought all of it directly into living rooms. But the contrast between global events and domestic routine remained striking. While headlines spoke of space exploration and political transformation, kitchens still required cleaning. Laundry still required folding. Meals still required planning. This duality defined the era for many families. One world expanding rapidly outward. Another world operating in stable cycles inward. Within that domestic world, expectations remained remarkably consistent. A well-run home was still measured by appearance, timing, and organization. Cleanliness mattered. Punctuality mattered. Preparedness mattered. These standards were not always formally stated, but they were widely understood, and they shaped behavior continuously. Even small details carried meaning. A tidy entryway suggested control. A well-prepared meal suggested care. A quiet, orderly evening suggested success. These interpretations created subtle but persistent pressure because they were visible to others, neighbors, guests, relatives, children, husbands. The home functioned as both private space and public display. During the mid to late 1960s, subtle cultural shifts began to appear more frequently in magazines, conversations, and educational contexts. Some articles began discussing women's education beyond high school. Others explored employment opportunities outside the home. A growing number of women were entering part-time or full-time work, though often balancing it with domestic responsibilities. But these changes did not replace existing expectations overnight. Instead, they layered on top of them. A woman might still be expected to maintain a full household while also considering outside work or personal development. This created an additional dimension of complexity. More roles, more responsibilities, more decisions. Yet for many, daily life remained anchored in familiar routines. Morning preparation, midday maintenance, afternoon activity, evening coordination, nighttime reflection. The structure remained intact even as the world around it evolved. One of the most enduring aspects of this period is how ordinary it appears when described in isolation, and how demanding it becomes when viewed in accumulation. No single task defines the experience. It is the repetition of tasks across time that creates its intensity. Cooking is not unusual. Cleaning is not unusual. Childcare is not unusual. Planning is not unusual. But performing all of them simultaneously, continuously, and without clear separation between work and rest, that is what shaped the lived reality of many women in this era. By the end of the evening, after the final lights were turned off and the house finally settled into silence, the cycle was not truly complete. It had simply reached its resting point, because somewhere in the background of that silence, tomorrow was already forming, not as a distant concept, but as a structured list of expected actions. And as sleep finally arrived, often lighter than it should have been, the mind continued to hold onto fragments of that list, until morning came again, and the routine resumed, exactly as it always had. Exactly as it always had. And that repetition is what shaped the rhythm of entire neighborhoods across 1960s America. By the time the decade was in full motion, suburban life had developed a kind of synchronized pattern. Not formally coordinated, but culturally aligned. In many homes, mornings began at similar hours. Afternoons followed school schedules. Evenings aligned around shared mealtimes. Television programming itself often reinforced this structure, with shows airing at predictable times that families planned around. Within this broader rhythm, the housewife's role functioned as the stabilizing core. While other family members moved between external environments, schools, workplaces, social spaces, the household remained under continuous internal management. One of the most significant aspects of this management was time coordination. Time was not experienced as abstract measurement. It was practical and immediate. Breakfast had to be ready at a specific hour. Children had to leave on schedule. Meals had to align with work returns. Appointments had to be met. Delays in one area created ripple effects across the entire day. This made timing not just important, but foundational. Unlike modern environments where delays can often be absorbed or rescheduled digitally, 1960s households operated in a more rigid temporal structure. If dinner was late, it affected everything that followed. If laundry was delayed, clothing availability shifted. If errands were missed, entire plans had to be adjusted manually. This required constant awareness of the clock. But more importantly, it required anticipation. Thinking ahead was not optional. It was essential for keeping the household functioning smoothly. Another defining feature of the era was the physicality of domestic work. Even with appliances, most tasks required direct human effort. Vacuuming involved pushing heavy machines across carpets. Laundry required transferring wet clothing between machines or lines. Cooking involved standing, stirring, lifting, and monitoring heat sources. Cleaning involved bending, scrubbing, reaching, and carrying. These were not brief actions, they were extended periods of movement. And when combined across an entire day, they created sustained physical workload. This physical dimension often went unacknowledged because it was dispersed across many small tasks rather than concentrated in one activity. A few minutes here, 10 minutes there, an hour later in the day, but collectively, it added up. In addition to physical labor, there was also what historians now often refer to as anticipatory management. This involved preparing for events that had not yet occurred, planning meals days in advance, preparing clothing based on weather expectations, anticipating children's needs for school, stocking household supplies before they ran out. This forward-thinking component made the role cognitively demanding. The housewife was not only responding to current conditions, she was constantly projecting forward into future ones. Meanwhile, the home itself was becoming more complex. By the 1960s, American households contained more consumer goods than in previous generations. Appliances such as refrigerators, washing machines, vacuum cleaners, and ovens had become more common. These devices reduced certain physical burdens, but introduced new forms of maintenance. Cleaning appliances, repairing them when needed, understanding their operation, managing their limitations. Technology did not eliminate work, it transformed it. At the same time, social expectations continued to evolve subtly. A good home was increasingly associated with both cleanliness and comfort. It was not enough for a house to function. It also needed to appear welcoming. This introduced an additional layer of effort. Presentation mattered. A living room ready for visitors. A kitchen that appeared orderly. A home that reflected stability. Even when no visitors were expected, many women maintained this standard as a default condition. Because visits could be unplanned. Because judgment could be immediate. Because appearance carried social weight. Within this environment, personal time became fragmented. There were no guaranteed, uninterrupted blocks of rest during the day. Instead, rest occurred in intervals between responsibilities. A brief pause while waiting for laundry. A moment sitting while food cooked. A few minutes of reading while children were occupied. These were not structured breaks. They were embedded within labor cycles. Even leisure was often layered with awareness of ongoing tasks. A radio playing in the background did not replace attention, it accompanied it. Television watching in the evening often coincided with folding laundry or organizing household items. The boundary between work and rest was porous. As the decade progressed, subtle generational differences began to emerge within families. Children growing up in the 1960s were exposed to expanding educational opportunities and shifting cultural ideas. They saw a world that felt increasingly dynamic and interconnected. Their expectations for adulthood would not always mirror those of their parents. But during this period, those differences were still forming. Within the household, traditional structures remained dominant. The mother continued to function as the central coordinator of domestic life. The father typically functioned as the external provider in many households, and children operated within structured routines shaped by both. This arrangement created stability, but also rigidity. Roles were clearly defined. Responsibilities were distributed accordingly. And deviation from those expectations was not always easily accommodated. Yet, even within that structure, individuality existed. Women experienced their roles differently. Some found fulfillment in managing households and raising families. Others experienced frustration or a sense of limitation. Many experienced both at different times. The historical record reflects this variation clearly. There was no single type of 1960s housewife. Only a wide range of lived experiences shaped by shared conditions. As evening approached in this stage of the cycle, the familiar transition once again unfolded. The return of family members marked a shift in energy. Household responsibilities intensified. Dinner preparation resumed focus. Conversations began to overlap. And the final structured phase of the day began moving toward completion. But even as this chapter of the day closed, the next was already forming quietly in the background. Not as uncertainty, but as certainty. Because in this world, the structure of tomorrow was already known. And it would begin again with the first sound of morning. With the first sound of morning. And once again, the the cycle resumed with quiet precision across countless American homes. By the mid to late 1960s, suburban life had become deeply standardized in its daily rhythm, even though individual households still varied in detail. The structure of the day remained remarkably consistent. Early morning preparation, midday maintenance, afternoon coordination, evening convergence, nighttime reflection. Each phase carried its own set of responsibilities, and each transitioned into the next without formal pause. For many housewives, mornings still represented the most critical period of control. Before external demands entered the home, there was a brief window where order could be established. Beds made, breakfast prepared, children organized, schedules checked, lunches packed. This sequence repeated with such regularity that it often became internalized as instinct rather than conscious planning. Even small disruptions could affect the entire flow. A late child, a missing item, a delayed task, because timing in one area always influenced timing in another. Once the family left, the household shifted into its maintenance phase again. But by this point in the decade, the scale of domestic work had subtly expanded due to increasing material complexity. Homes contain more possessions than in earlier decades. More clothing, more appliances, more household goods, more decorative items. Each addition improved comfort in some way, but each also required upkeep. Cleaning became more detailed. Organization became more necessary. Storage systems became more important. Even simple tasks like tidying a room required more decisions than before. What should be kept visible? What should be stored? What should be repaired? What should be discarded? These decisions accumulated throughout the day, and they required constant attention. Laundry remained one of the most continuous cycles of household labor. It was not a weekly event so much as an ongoing process. Clothes moved through a predictable sequence of states. Worn, collected, sorted, washed, dried, folded, stored, and worn again. But because families produced constant demand, this cycle rarely paused. At any given moment, part of the system was active, even when no one was consciously thinking about it. Cleaning routines also evolved in response to changing home design. Many 1960s houses featured more open interior spaces than earlier decades, which made cleaning both easier and more visible. A single messy area could affect the perception of the entire home. This increased the importance of routine maintenance. Even brief moments of disorder were more noticeable. And so, many women developed habits of continuous adjustment rather than occasional large-scale cleaning. A surface wiped immediately after use. A room reset multiple times per day. A constant low-level effort to maintain order rather than restore it. This approach reduced the need for overwhelming cleaning sessions, but it also meant there was rarely a moment when everything felt done. In parallel with physical work, communication technologies played a growing role in shaping daily life. The household telephone had become central in many homes. It connected families to schools, relatives, doctors, neighbors, and institutions. But it also introduced unpredictability into the day. Calls could interrupt any task, and each call often brought new information requiring action. A change in schedule, a request for participation, a reminder of an obligation. Unlike modern messaging systems that allow delayed responses, telephone communication required immediate attention. This reinforced the sense that household time was always partially open to external demands. During this period, education systems were also expanding their expectations of parental involvement. Schools increasingly communicated with families about academic progress, behavioral development, and extracurricular activities. Parents were expected to support learning at home in structured ways. Homework supervision became more consistent. Reading practice was encouraged. Projects required materials and assistance. This extended the household's educational role beyond simple supervision into active participation. Many mothers became informal tutors, project managers, and learning coordinators, often without formal training, but with consistent responsibility. As afternoon unfolded each day, the household became a convergence point for multiple overlapping needs. Children returned with energy and questions. Domestic tasks resumed simultaneously. Meals required preparation. Emotional needs required attention. Schedules needed coordination. This period was frequently described as one of the most intense segments of the day because multiple systems activated at once. Unlike morning, which was more structured, afternoon was dynamic, unpredictable, responsive, and often reactive rather than planned. Dinner preparation, however, still required structure even within that unpredictability. Timing remained critical. Cooking processes had to align with family return schedules. Ingredients had to be prepared in sequence. Heat sources managed carefully. Side tasks completed in parallel. And throughout all of it, interruptions continued. The kitchen, therefore, functioned as both a workspace and a coordination hub, where planning met execution in real time. Once dinner was served, the household briefly transitioned into a shared social space. Families gathered. Conversations unfolded. Events of the day were discussed. Information was exchanged. But even this moment of togetherness was framed within responsibility. Serving food, managing children, maintaining order. And afterward, the inevitable cleanup cycle resumed. Washing dishes, clearing surfaces, resetting the kitchen, preparing for the next day. This repetition across days, weeks, and years created a structure that felt both stable and unending. Stable because it was predictable, unending because it never fully concluded. As night arrived again, the household entered its final phase. Children prepared for sleep. Household items were organized. Schedules were reviewed. Tomorrow was mentally mapped once more. And in that quiet period before rest, many women experienced the final transition of the day. Not relief, not completion, but continuation. Because the system did not end with the day. It simply reset, and waited, and waited. That waiting was not passive. It was structured anticipation, an expectation that the next cycle would begin with near-identical demands, even if small details changed. By this point in the 1960s domestic rhythm, the idea of catching up became almost symbolic rather than literal. There was always something slightly behind schedule, always a task that could be improved, adjusted, or revisited. Many housewives described life not as a series of completed tasks, but as a continuous flow of maintenance. This concept is important for understanding the lived reality of the period, because in many ways, the household functioned less like a finished product and more like an ongoing system requiring constant regulation. Temperature had to be maintained, order had to be maintained, food supply had to be maintained, emotional balance had to be maintained. And none of these systems operated independently. They were interconnected. A disruption in one area often created ripple effects across others. For example, a delay in grocery shopping could affect meal planning for several days. A child's illness could alter schedules, increase cleaning needs, and shift emotional energy across the household. A broken appliance could temporarily restructure entire routines. Everything was linked. And the housewife was often the central point of coordination between all of these moving parts. In many suburban homes of the era, morning still began with a carefully structured sequence of actions that rarely changed in order. Wake. Assess the day. Begin breakfast. Manage children. Prepare lunches. Organize departures. Restore the kitchen. Even though each step seemed small, the accumulation created a dense workload before many people outside the home had even started their own workday. By mid-morning, attention often shifted toward deeper household management tasks. This might include organizing storage areas, reviewing seasonal clothing, or addressing repairs that had been postponed earlier in the week. Small maintenance jobs were rarely isolated. They often revealed other tasks that also needed attention. Opening a closet might lead to reorganizing its contents. Fixing one garment might reveal another that also needed repair. Cleaning one area might expose another that required work. The household operated like a network of interconnected obligations, and each action often created the next. At the same time, consumer goods continued to expand across American homes. This expansion had a dual effect. It increased convenience, but it also increased management complexity. More appliances meant more surfaces to clean. More clothing meant more laundry cycles. More kitchen tools meant more organization. More decorations meant more storage decisions. The modernizing home was not simpler, it was different in structure. And that difference shaped daily life in subtle, but persistent ways. Transportation again played a major role in structuring the day. Even though automobiles were increasingly common, many households still relied on a single vehicle. This meant scheduling was coordinated around availability. Trips to shops, schools, medical appointments, and social events had to be planned carefully. Spontaneity was limited not by lack of desire, but by logistical constraints. A missed opportunity often meant waiting until the next available window. This reinforced the importance of foresight. Planning ahead was not just helpful, it was necessary. As afternoon approached, the household once again transitioned into its most demanding phase. Children returned. Energy levels rose. Noise increased. Tasks multiplied. And attention became fragmented across multiple simultaneous needs. One child might require help with schoolwork. Another might need emotional support after a difficult day. Another might simply demand food or attention. At the same time, dinner preparation could not be delayed. This overlap created a layered structure of responsibility that required constant switching between roles. Cook, organizer, listener, supervisor, planner, caretaker. These roles were not separate, they were performed interchangeably, often within the same minutes. Evening then brought temporary stabilization. Dinner provided a central point of focus. Families gathered. Routines aligned. Conversation flowed. But even this structured moment was followed immediately by another set of tasks. Cleanup. Organization. Preparation for the next day. The kitchen reset itself through effort rather than automation. Dishes washed by hand. Counters wiped manually. Food stored carefully. The cycle closed only to reopen later. As night deepened, the household finally moved into quiet. But quiet did not mean absence of responsibility. It meant transition into mental processing, reviewing the day, anticipating tomorrow, adjusting plans, remembering what had been missed. This internal cycle often continued until sleep. And even then, fragments of it sometimes remained present in thought, because the household never fully stopped. It only shifted form. And in that shift, the structure of the next day was already taking shape, waiting just beyond the edge of morning light. Waiting just beyond the edge of morning light. By the later part of the 1960s, this rhythm had become deeply embedded in the structure of suburban life across the United States. Even as culture, politics, and technology shifted outwardly, the internal mechanics of many households remained steady. The day still began with preparation before participation. Before the outside world fully entered the home had already begun organizing itself. Breakfast routines continued to function as the first major coordination point. Heat, food, timing, and people had to align almost simultaneously. There was little margin for delay, because once children left for school and adults left for work, the household's daytime identity changed completely. It became a managed environment rather than an active one. Rooms were reset, surfaces restored, laundry cycles initiated or continued, meals planned for later. This phase of the day often appeared quiet from the outside, but internally it remained structured and active. One of the most consistent elements during this period was the expansion of domestic planning into multi-day thinking. A single day was no longer the only unit of organization. Households increasingly operated on overlapping timelines. Today's meals, tomorrow's errands, next week's schedules, seasonal needs. This layered planning required memory, attention, and flexibility. A forgotten detail did not simply disappear, it reappeared later as a disruption. In this way, the household functioned like a continuously updated system of priorities. At the same time, the physical environment of American homes was evolving. Kitchens became more standardized, appliances more common, storage systems more integrated into home design. But these changes did not reduce the underlying requirement for management. They altered the tools, not the responsibility. Cooking, for example, became more efficient in certain ways, but also more complex in others. New packaged goods required understanding of preparation methods. Frozen foods introduced timing considerations. Processed ingredients changed meal structure. Traditional cooking methods still remained dominant in many households, especially where family preferences or budgets favored them. This created a hybrid environment of old and new practices existing side by side. Laundry followed a similar pattern of change. Machines reduced manual scrubbing, but sorting, transferring, drying, folding, and organizing remained fully manual tasks. Clothing care still required attention to detail. Fabric types behaved differently. Stains required treatment. Timing remained important. A delayed load could affect the rest of the day's schedule. As the morning progressed, attention often shifted toward errands or household administration tasks. Bills might be reviewed, letters written, telephone calls made, appointments confirmed. Each of these tasks represented a connection between the household and the outside world. Unlike modern digital communication, these interactions required deliberate action. No reminders appeared automatically. No notifications surfaced. Everything depended on memory and routine. By late morning, the household often entered a quieter but still active phase. Cleaning routines continued, but in more flexible form. Organization tasks were addressed. Spaces were adjusted based on emerging needs. Sometimes this involved small corrections, sometimes larger reorganizations. The home was constantly being rebalanced rather than permanently arranged. As afternoon approached, anticipation returned. The familiar transition point of the day, children returning from school, remained one of the most dynamic moments in the entire cycle. Energy levels shifted rapidly. Noise increased. Movement intensified. Multiple needs appeared at once. The house responded accordingly. Snack preparation resumed immediately. Conversations began simultaneously in different rooms. Homework needed attention. Emotions required management. And throughout all of this, dinner preparation quietly moved forward in the background. This overlap created one of the most distinctive features of the 1960s domestic routine: parallel processing without separation. Tasks were not isolated into blocks. They coexisted. Cook while listening, clean while supervising, plan while responding, adjust while continuing. This required constant cognitive flexibility. As evening arrived, structure gradually reasserted itself. Dinner provided a focal point for the household, a shared moment that temporarily aligned everyone's attention. Meals were served. Conversations took place. Daily experiences were exchanged. But even during this moment of apparent rest, responsibilities remained active. Serving, observing, managing, and then inevitably cleaning. The post-dinner phase often mirrored the pre-dinner phase in reverse. Where preparation had built toward a moment, cleanup dismantled it. And once again, the kitchen returned to its neutral state, ready for the next cycle. Night brought the final transition. Children prepared for sleep. Household systems were reset. Clothing for the next day was arranged. Lunches were considered. Schedules mentally reviewed. And the house slowly reduced its visible activity. But internally, the system remained active in thought. Because tomorrow was not uncertain. It was already largely known. It would begin again in the same way. With preparation, with coordination, with responsibility, and with the quiet understanding that the cycle would continue, regardless of whether anyone felt ready for it or not. Regardless of whether anyone felt ready for it or not. That reality defined the structure of countless mornings across 1960s American homes, where readiness was rarely the determining factor, timing was. The alarm clock, school schedules, work hours, and social expectations all operated as fixed points. The household adjusted itself around them. By this stage in the cycle, the repetition of daily life often created a deeply ingrained rhythm in the body and mind. Many women no longer consciously started tasks in the way one might imagine. Instead, they flowed from one action to the next based on learned sequence. Breakfast preparation, for instance, was not a single act but a coordinated chain. Heat source first, then food preparation, then simultaneous timing of multiple items, then packing lunches alongside cooking, then managing interruptions, then final checks before departure. Even small variations in this sequence could affect the entire morning outcome. Once the household became empty of departing family members, the structure of the day shifted into maintenance mode again. But by now in the broader decade, the workload was often shaped not only by tradition but also by expanding domestic expectations. Homes were more filled than in previous generations. Not necessarily more cluttered in a careless sense, but more densely equipped. More utensils, more clothing categories, more cleaning tools, more specialized household items. Each item created a micro-responsibility within the larger system. Nothing existed without upkeep. Even objects designed to reduce labor still required attention. Vacuum cleaners needed cleaning. Washing machines needed maintenance awareness. Refrigerators needed organization. Storage systems needed periodic restructuring. The household, in effect, became a managed ecosystem. One of the most persistent cycles remained laundry. It did not follow a weekly boundary so much as a continuous loop. Clothing usage generated immediate demand for cleaning. Cleaning generated drying and folding. Folding generated storage. Storage generated reuse. And reuse restarted the cycle. At any given moment, part of the system was in motion. This continuity is one reason many accounts from the period describe domestic work as never finished. Not because tasks were impossible, but because completion did not halt the system. It only reset it. Cleaning followed a similar logic. Rooms were not cleaned once per day in isolation. They were maintained repeatedly in small increments. A surface, wiped after use. A floor checked after activity. A room adjusted multiple times depending on how it was used. This method reduced large-scale effort but increased constant attention. It transformed cleaning from an event into a background process. Meanwhile, communication remained a central force shaping daily interruption patterns. The telephone, now firmly embedded in suburban life, served as both connection and disruption. Calls arrived without warning. They carried immediate expectations. Responses were not delayed, and each interaction often introduced new obligations or adjustments. A schedule change, a social invitation, a school update, a family message. Each call became a branching point in the day structure. At the same time, grocery shopping and meal planning continued to shape cognitive workload. Even without leaving the house, planning remained active. What is already available? What will be needed next? What can be stretched across multiple meals? What must be purchased soon? Food management was less about single meals and more about continuous sequencing. Breakfast connected to lunch. Lunch connected to dinner. Dinner connected to the next morning. Nothing stood alone. By afternoon, the household reached its most socially active phase. Children returned from school, bringing with them both energy and emotional complexity. The home became a convergence point of multiple states at once. Excitement, fatigue, frustration, relief. Each required attention. Each required response. At the same time, practical tasks continued without pause. Dinner preparation could not wait for emotional stabilization. Laundry could not pause for conversation. Cleaning could not delay itself for interruption. Everything moved forward simultaneously. This is where the role of coordination becomes most visible. Not in any single task, but in the constant switching between them. Listening while cooking. Helping while preparing food. Organizing while responding. Anticipating while adjusting. Evening, then, acted as a temporary consolidation point. Dinner gathered the household into a shared structure. But even that structure was brief. Once completed, it dissolved back into individual tasks. Cleaning. Preparation. Organization. Resetting the home for tomorrow's repetition. As night deepened again, the household entered its final phase. Quiet returned, but not emptiness. Instead, a form of structured stillness settled in. A state where visible activity stopped, but mental processes remained active. Reviewing, planning, remembering, adjusting. This internal cycle often extended into sleep, because the system did not end at night. It simply changed location, from physical action to mental preparation. And in that transition, the next day was already forming itself, quietly, in advance of morning light. In advance of morning light. And in many ways, That advanced preparation was what allowed the entire household structure of the 1960s to function with such consistency. Even without formal systems or modern digital organization tools, households maintained continuity through memory, habit, and repetition. By the early part of the next day's cycle, small details often determined the tone of everything that followed. A forgotten item the night before, a delayed task, an unprepared ingredient, a missed schedule note. Each of these could ripple forward into the morning sequence. That is why nighttime mental organization became such an important part of domestic life. It was not idle thinking, it was system stabilization. Meanwhile, mornings continued to operate as high-density coordination periods. Multiple systems activated at once. Food preparation, child readiness, schedule management, household reset. Each layer depended on the others functioning correctly. If breakfast was delayed, departure was delayed. If departure was delayed, school schedules were affected. If school schedules were affected, afternoon routines shifted. This interdependence created a constant awareness of timing pressure. Not necessarily stress in every moment, but a persistent background structure of urgency. As the household emptied during the day, the maintenance phase resumed again. But by this stage of the decade, many women had developed highly refined routines that minimized decision fatigue. Tasks were often performed in consistent order. Cleaning followed predictable patterns. Laundry cycles were integrated into daily flow. Meal planning followed recurring structures. These routines reduced uncertainty, even if they did not reduce total workload. A familiar structure can make a heavy system more manageable, even if the weight remains unchanged. One of the most important aspects of this period was the role of small, repeated actions. A single household task rarely took long, but repetition across dozens of tasks created significant cumulative effort. Wiping surfaces, sorting items, checking rooms, adjusting storage, preparing food components, managing laundry steps. Each action individually appeared minor. Together, they formed the core labor of the household. At the same time, material culture continued expanding across American homes. Consumer goods became more widely available and more frequently replaced. New products entered the household environment regularly. Cleaning supplies, kitchen tools, clothing items, decorative objects. Each promised efficiency, comfort, or improvement. But each also added maintenance responsibility, because every object required placement, care, or occasional repair. This is one of the subtle contradictions of modernization during the period. Increased convenience often came with increased management complexity. As afternoon approached once again, the familiar pattern of return began. Children arrived home. The house shifted from quiet maintenance to active engagement. Noise levels increased. Movement filled the rooms. Attention fragmented across multiple directions. At this point in the daily cycle, multitasking became not just common but essential. One task alone could not define the moment. Instead, several tasks overlapped continuously. Cooking while supervising, listening while preparing, responding while organizing, adjusting while continuing. There was rarely a full pause between responsibilities. Even brief moments of stillness were often temporary pauses between actions rather than true rest. Dinner preparation once again formed the central organizing activity of the evening. It required timing, coordination, and constant adjustment. Ingredients had to be prepared in sequence. Cooking stages had to align. Family schedules had to be synchronized. And interruptions had to be managed without losing overall progress. The kitchen, in this sense, acted as the operational center of the household during peak hours. Not simply a place for food, but a place for coordination of the entire evening structure. Once dinner was served, a temporary sense of completion often emerged. The family gathered. The day's events were shared. A brief social unity formed around the table. But even this moment was embedded within a larger system of labor. Serving food, managing conversation, observing needs, and then transitioning immediately into cleanup, washing, clearing, resetting, preparing again. The cycle folded back into itself. And as night returned, the household gradually quieted. Children moved toward sleep. Rooms were reset. Schedules were reviewed. Tomorrow was considered, once again, not as possibility, but as structure. A known sequence already waiting to begin. And in that structure, the rhythm of 1960s domestic life continued forward, steady and unbroken, carried from one day into the next without interruption. Without interruption. That continuity is what gave 1960s household life its defining shape, less a series of separate days, and more a continuous system that reset but never truly stopped. By this point in the cycle, many domestic routines had become so deeply internalized that they no longer required conscious sequencing. The body moved first, thought followed. Morning tasks, in particular, operated with near-mechanical consistency. Wake. Assess time. Initiate kitchen routine. Coordinate children. Prepare departure items. Confirm readiness. Send household members outward into their external schedules. Then immediately turn attention inward again. This inward shift is where the second phase of the day began, the maintenance phase. It often appeared quiet from the outside, but internally it remained densely structured. Surfaces were reset. Laundry progressed through stages. Rooms were adjusted based on use. Food planning continued in the background. Even without direct action, the household remained mentally active. A defining feature of this period was how deeply time was segmented without formal division. There were no official breaks in the way modern labor systems often define them. Instead, there were transitions between types of work. Cooking became cleaning. Cleaning became organizing. Organizing became planning. Planning became responding. Responding became cooking again. This loop structure meant that even rest was often contextual rather than absolute. A chair might be sat in, a moment might be taken, but awareness rarely disengaged fully from responsibility. At the same time, the physical environment of the American home continued to evolve. Suburban housing design increasingly emphasized efficiency in layout, open access between kitchen and living areas, shorter distances between functional spaces, more integrated storage solutions. These changes reduced movement distance but increased visibility of household conditions. A cluttered surface was harder to ignore. An unclean area was more noticeable. Order became not just functional but visual. This reinforced the importance of continuous maintenance rather than occasional correction. Laundry systems remained one of the clearest examples of continuous labor loops. Clothing usage created immediate processing demand. Washing cycles operated while other tasks continued. Drying required attention to timing and environment. Folding required organization and categorization. Storage required placement and memory. Then usage restarted the cycle. At no point did laundry fully finish. It only moved through phases. In parallel, food systems operated on similar looping structures. Meals were not isolated events. They were connected sequences. Breakfast influenced lunch. Lunch influenced dinner. Dinner influenced the next morning. Planning therefore extended beyond immediate need into ongoing anticipation. What will be required tomorrow? What is already available? What must be reused? What must be replaced? This continuous forecasting added a cognitive layer to physical work. By afternoon, the household entered its most complex interaction phase. Children returned from school, and the environment shifted rapidly from structured quiet to dynamic activity. This transition required immediate adjustment, not gradual change. Immediate re-engagement. At this stage, multiple roles activated simultaneously. Caregiver, cook, organizer, mediator, planner, problem solver. Each role appeared in response to different needs, often within the same short span of time. Emotional labor became especially prominent during this phase. Children brought home not only physical needs, but emotional experiences from the day. Successes, conflicts, frustrations, excitement, confusion. Each required acknowledgement. Each required response. Often while other tasks continued simultaneously. Dinner preparation continued in parallel, forming the backbone of the evening structure. Timing remained critical. Cooking stages had to align with household flow. Delays affected not just the meal, but the entire evening sequence. Once dinner was complete, the household briefly unified again. The table became a shared space, a temporary convergence point. But even this unity was structured around responsibility: serving, observing, listening, managing, and then transitioning immediately into cleanup and reset. Afterward, the home moved into its final phase of the day: night routines, preparation for tomorrow, quiet organization, mental review. This phase often appeared calm externally, but remained active internally. The mind continued organizing tasks even as physical movement slowed. And so the cycle completed itself once more, not as an ending, but as a reset, waiting for the next morning, where it would begin again, By this point in the cycle, repetition itself had become a kind of structure that shaped perception of time. Days did not feel like isolated events, but like linked segments in a continuous domestic chain. Each morning carried traces of the previous night's preparation. Each afternoon carried consequences of morning decisions. Each evening carried the accumulated weight of the entire day. And each night quietly set the conditions for what would follow. Within many 1960s American households, this continuity was not abstract, it was operational. The household depended on it functioning smoothly. Disruption at any point could cascade forward into multiple stages. A late breakfast affected school arrival times. A missed grocery item altered dinner planning. A delayed laundry cycle changed clothing availability. A forgotten appointment impacted the entire week's schedule. Because of this interconnectedness, attention rarely stayed in one place for long. The housewife's role, in practice, was not confined to individual tasks. It was distributed across systems: food system, cleaning system, clothing system, scheduling system, emotional support system, maintenance system. Each required monitoring, each required adjustment, each influenced the others. Even in moments that appeared calm, such as mid-morning quiet, the household remained structurally active. Laundry might be running, food might be thawing or being planned, rooms might be undergoing incremental cleaning, schedules might be mentally updated. There was rarely a true pause in system activity, only changes in intensity. By this stage in the decade, many homes had also begun incorporating more standardized appliances and household tools. These tools were often marketed as time-saving innovations, and in many cases, they did reduce specific forms of manual labor. But they also introduced new layers of responsibility. Machines required understanding. They required maintenance awareness. They required integration into existing routines. A washing machine did not eliminate laundry work. It changed its shape. Similarly, kitchen appliances reduced certain preparation times, but increased coordination requirements. Food timing became more structured. Cooking sequences became more dependent on equipment. Even cleaning tools introduced new workflows rather than removing them entirely. This is why domestic labor in this period cannot be accurately described as simply reduced by technology. It was transformed into a more system-based form of management. Meanwhile, social expectations continued to operate in the background of daily life. Homes were still expected to appear orderly. Meals were still expected to be prepared consistently. Children were still expected to be supervised and guided. And households were still expected to function as stable environments within their communities. These expectations were rarely explicitly stated, but they were widely understood, and they influenced behavior continuously. As afternoon approached each day, the household once again entered its most dynamic phase. The return of children acted as a trigger for multiple simultaneous systems. Communication increased. Movement increased. Demand increased. The house shifted from maintenance mode into active coordination mode. This transition required rapid cognitive adjustment, from quiet planning to immediate response, from structured routine to unpredictable variation, from solitary tasks to overlapping responsibilities. At this stage, the kitchen again became the central operational space, not only for cooking, but for managing the flow of the entire evening. Dinner preparation had to begin early enough to align with family arrival patterns, but not so early that food would lose quality. Timing required constant adjustment. Ingredients needed sequential preparation. Cooking stages needed monitoring. Interruptions needed handling without losing progress. Even small delays could affect the entire household rhythm. This is where the concept of flow management becomes useful in describing the period. The housewife was not only performing tasks, she was managing the flow between tasks, ensuring continuity across interruptions, maintaining coherence across overlapping demands. As evening deepened, dinner once again served as the central point of convergence, a temporary stabilization of the household system. Family members gathered, meals were shared, conversations occurred, information circulated. But even this structured moment existed within a larger cycle of responsibility: serving, observing, adjusting, supporting, and then transitioning immediately into cleanup, washing dishes, clearing surfaces, resetting spaces, preparing for the next day before the current day had fully ended. After dinner, the household entered its final operational phase. Children moved toward sleep routines. Rooms were organized. Schedules were reviewed. Items for the next morning were prepared or considered. And mental review began once again. What was completed? What was not? What needed adjustment? What could not be forgotten tomorrow? This internal processing often continued even after physical activity stopped, because the system did not rely on external reminders. It relied on internal continuity. And so, as night settled over suburban streets, the household once again reached its quiet state. Not an ending, not a conclusion, but a reset point, waiting for the next cycle to begin with morning light. Waiting for the next cycle to begin with morning light. By this final stage before closure, the structure of 1960s domestic life reveals itself less as a collection of tasks and more as a continuous operating loop. A system that renews itself daily, yet never fully pauses. Morning begins the activation sequence. Afternoon intensifies coordination. Evening consolidates activity. Night resets the environment. And then the loop repeats. Within many American homes of the era, this repetition created a strong sense of predictability, even when individual days varied slightly in content. The framework itself rarely changed. What changed were the details inside it. Weather patterns influenced laundry timing. School schedules influenced preparation routines. Family needs influenced meal planning. Unexpected events influenced emotional and logistical responses. But the underlying structure remained intact. One of the most defining characteristics of this period is how much responsibility was embedded in small, continuous actions rather than large, visible events. A clean kitchen was not achieved through a single act. It was maintained through dozens of micro-actions across the day. A successful dinner was not the result of one moment of cooking. It was the result of hours of preparation, timing, and coordination. A well-functioning household was not the product of occasional effort. It was the accumulation of constant adjustment. This is why the workload often felt invisible from the outside, because it was distributed rather than concentrated. Another key feature was the absence of clear separation between work and non-work time within the home. The environment itself contained both simultaneously. Rest occurred within responsibility. Leisure occurred alongside monitoring. Silence often contained planning. Even moments of sitting still could involve mental tracking of multiple upcoming tasks. What needs to be done next? What is already in motion? What might fail, if not checked? What requires attention before tomorrow? This continuous awareness formed a background layer of cognitive labor that never fully shut off during waking hours. At the same time, the physical environment of a 1960s home continued to evolve toward increased complexity. More items meant more organization requirements. More organization meant more categorization decisions. More decisions meant more mental load. Even with technological assistance, the structure of responsibility expanded rather than contracted. Appliances reduced certain forms of manual effort, but they did not reduce system oversight. They added new points of management: timing appliances, maintenance awareness, usage coordination, integration into daily routines. The household became increasingly system-like in its behavior. And like any system, it required constant regulation to remain stable. By afternoon, the most demanding phase of the daily cycle consistently emerged. Children returning home transformed the household environment almost immediately. The transition was not gradual, it was abrupt. Quiet turned into noise. Stillness turned into movement. Maintenance turned into active coordination. At this point, multiple roles were activated simultaneously. Cooking while supervising, listening while organizing, responding while preparing, adjusting while continuing. This overlapping structure created a dynamic environment where attention was constantly redistributed. No single task could dominate for long. Everything existed in parallel. Dinner preparation remained the central organizing force during this phase. It required sequencing, timing, and coordination across multiple moving parts. Even small disruptions required immediate correction to maintain overall flow. Once dinner was served, the household briefly stabilized. A shared moment of presence formed. Family members gathered around a single activity. Conversation flowed. The day was partially summarized through informal exchange. But this stabilization was temporary, because immediately afterward, the system returned to breakdown and reset. Cleaning, organizing, preparing, restoring the environment to baseline. As night approached, the household transitioned into its final phase once again. Children moved toward rest. Physical activity slowed. Spaces were reset. Schedules were reviewed. Tomorrow was mentally constructed in outline form. And beneath all of it, the same structure remained waiting. Not as uncertainty, but as expectation. A known pattern. A repeated sequence. A cycle that would begin again without deviation. With morning light. And so, in the quiet of late-night suburban America, the system reached its resting point. Not an end, but a pause between repetitions. The next day was already prepared to begin. The next day was already prepared to begin. And in that preparation, the entire structure of 1960s domestic life reveals its final shape. Not a single story, but a repeating system of care, maintenance, and coordination that sustained the household across time. In the earliest light of morning, the pattern returns once more. Kitchen first. Routine first. Responsibility first. The house does not wait for permission to become active. It simply transitions, as it always has, from stillness into function. Coffee begins again. Breakfast begins again. Children's preparation begins again. Schedules begin again. The world outside may change. Politics, technology, culture, expectations, but inside the home, the immediate structure of life continues its familiar rhythm. By the time the household reaches daytime, the maintenance layer resumes its steady presence. Cleaning, organizing, checking, adjusting. Laundry cycles continue to rotate through their predictable stages. Meals are planned not as isolated moments, but as connected links in a continuous chain of necessity. Even small details carry forward into the next phase of the day. A misplaced item, a delayed task, a forgotten step. Each one becomes part of tomorrow's adjustment. Afternoons arrive again with their familiar intensity. Children return. Energy shifts. Noise increases. Emotional and practical demands converge in overlapping layers. And once more, the house becomes a place of simultaneous actions: cooking, listening, supervising, planning, correcting. Dinner forms again as the central axis of the evening, a moment of alignment in an otherwise fragmented day. Family gathers. Food is served. Conversation flows, then dissolves into cleanup, as it always does. And after cleanup, the home returns to its quieter state. Not empty, not finished, but reset. Night becomes the final stage of awareness, where the mind organizes what the body has already completed. Tomorrow is reviewed. Obligations are checked. Tasks are mentally rehearsed. Nothing truly ends here. It is only stored for continuation. This is what defines the lived experience of the 1960s housewife's daily routine. Not individual exhaustion alone, but continuous structure without clear closure. A cycle that absorbs effort, redistributes it, and begins again. A system where completion is temporary and repetition is permanent. And yet within that repetition, life itself is sustained. Families are fed, homes are maintained, children are raised, and communities quietly continue to function. As the final quiet settles over the home, the last thought is not of ending, but of return. Because morning will come again, and with it, the same sequence will unfold. Not identical in detail, but identical in structure. A familiar rhythm, a known pattern, a life lived in cycles of care that never truly stop, only begin again.